Well, hello everybody, and welcome to a WordCast number 82. I have gotten that number right like 6 times in a row now. I think it is. I'm trying to keep track of that, so it's important. We've got a pretty massive podcast for you guys today. There's been a lot of news this week, which is in great contrast to our last week of complaining
Yeah.
about there not being enough news. So I guess we'll just kind of jump into this here. So I'll let you introduce yourself, sir.
I'm Daniel. That's about
Oh,
it.
and I didn't really say that my name was Ethan, and today is September 17th, 2020 at 8:30 p.m. So I wanted to make
That
sure.
is actually important. There's been so much news that knowing when to record this in case when something changes in probably an hour and a half, you'll
Yeah,
know.
exactly. So 8:30 p.m. Pacific time. So when NVidia announces a new type of airplane. It happened after the podcast. So
Yeah. And now if they announce one, you're gonna seem like a genius.
seem like.
Yeah, seem like.
Alrighty, well, I guess we can jump into this one here, and I'll let you take the lead here on this guy.
Yeah, so we have talked before about how SoftBank was looking at selling ARM. And now we know the buyer. We've had rumors for a bit that it could be NVidia, and NVIDIA has officially put out their press release. They are going to attempt to buy ARM for $40 billion.
Yeah, so
Wild.
it's kind of crazy. It makes you wonder it makes you wonder what's going to happen, but really what we need to be wondering about is like what chips are going to come out. Like I think there were some people that had worries about ARM itself. They are planning on completely keeping the like open licensing that ARM currently has. I think that's
And then the
important.
other thing, so like the way that ARM works and so obviously NVIDIA buys them to make a profit. Um, the way that ARM works for most companies, like with Qualcomm, for example, is that Qualcomm essentially buys like core designs from ARM
Right.
and then makes their chips around the ARM cores. Obviously, NVIDIA is not going to want to give up Qualcomm as a customer. They are not going to change their licensing and put Qualcomm or MediaTek out of being customers. That would defeat the purpose of buying ARM.
Yeah, they'd start
Like
to lose money at that
the
point.
the AI stuff is great and all, and it will probably still be profitable in the end. But like, there's no reason to give up a huge customer segment. There's no disadvantage to having them.
Yeah, and initially this
Um,
huge focus that they have on AI is probably gonna it cost them money if they got rid of other customers. Like it's something they're
yeah, well,
investing
and
in.
it's like if you have the option of buying a company and it already has one very profitable division and you foresee a way to make another very profitable division, you
Yeah,
wouldn't shut down the already very profitable division. You would just
yeah.
keep making profit
That way you can
and
fund
then
whatever you want to do.
yeah. And then as far as Apple goes, as they're in a more unique situation where they have and actually utilize the architectural license. I say that because Qualcomm does technically have the architectural license, from my understanding,
Hmm.
but they don't do their own core designs.
That's right. Yeah, because they're buying all the core designs. They don't even do any of their own, do they?
I think they did a couple chips that were custom.
They're probably not very good.
I think they were fine.
Oh,
It wasn't better enough that it was worth them doing that chip design in house. That's obviously a substantial task.
yeah,
They already have to
absolutely.
design the rest of the chip. Why
Yeah.
design the cores if it's not going to be enough better that it makes sense?
No, that makes sense.
Um, but Apple has an architectural license, and they actually do completely make their own chips. Essentially, they're just using ARM's version of the RISC instruction set.
Right, right. And so I guess at this point, then NVIDIA stands to profit a lot from Apple. Maybe.
I don't know how that deal works. So, from my understanding, I think that the way it works is that Apple has already purchased the architectural license. So that is not an ongoing transaction. Now, they might have to
Oh,
pay for updates to the instruction set. But for the current ones they have, from my understanding, they own. But they might have to pay royalties still. It just might be a fixed amount per that purchase agreement.
so in that case, the entire reason that Leather Jacket Jensen bought ARM was because he wanted to force Apple to give them money because Apple refuses to buy NVIDIA products.
It's his way of getting Apple as a customer.
Yeah, he was like, okay,
Yeah.
we'll just buy something you rely on.
Yep.
No, it's interesting. I'm excited to see what comes from it. I mean, I guess we're speculating desktop CPUs potentially.
I really hope so. I mean, that would obviously be a ways out.
Well, yeah, because Windows isn't there, and NVIDIA's
Well,
primary customer base
even
is
if it
Windows.
was, it would
Yeah,
be,
well, yeah, there's a lot of work to
yeah.
do to make an actual high performance desktop chip. Is gonna, like ARM is mobile specific, but it does make me question if that's something that they might try and do. I mean, I would love to see another player.
Yeah, I would too. Even if they don't get there, at least in the next 5 or 10 years, they reasonably could probably start putting out laptop chips relatively quickly, 2-3 years, because ARM already has chips. NVIDIA already has experience making higher end ARM chips.
They do, yeah, for some of the
Qualcomm has
tablets and
been
stuff.
working with Windows to try and improve that experience. So there's all these different spots where they would already be like part way along in the process. Because remember, they've already made x86. NVIDIA has already made x86 ARM chips before this acquisition.
Yeah, no, they did. Yeah, well, yeah, ones that followed the x86 instruction set. They weren't x80. They're emulation still at that point, but it just, I don't know. It makes me wonder, like, if we start to see a bigger push for that, like, what direction is Windows gonna go? And I guess my personal speculation is that Windows itself has always been the platform that, it may not be the most stable, it may not be the most secure, but it works on everything, and it works pretty well on everything, assuming you have enough RAM. And so, like, I wonder if we're going to see a direction where Windows will just kind of seamlessly work on ARM or x86. And in that event, like, how are x86 exclusive apps that are only compiled for x86 going to work? Or are we going to see most developers make 2 versions of the apps? I mean, some applications that require a lot of the instructions that x86 has that ARM doesn't, since it's a limited instruction set architecture. Some applications might just not be viable on ARM, or the performance might be lower, and they'll never make an ARM version.
Here's what I think could happen. So realistically, I don't foresee Windows on ARM ever doing well without something akin to what Apple is doing as far as a translation layer.
Where it happens at the install point.
Yes. Well, I like how Apple's does it, where depending on the application, it'll either do it at install or at run.
Yeah.
Depending on whatever their scenarios are. But they'll need like a quality translation layer. It has to be really good for this to be viable.
Right. And right now it's emulation.
Well,
it's not
let me finish what I'm saying. So NVIDIA now has a reason. They have every reason now to make that translation layer themselves for Windows, or at least help significantly. NVIDIA also happens to be one of the best, seemingly, at making tools to make it easy to develop and to port things to ARM based on the switch.
Yeah.
So you already have a company that has expertise in making things that were originally made for x86 ultimately get going easy, relatively speaking, on ARM. They already have some significant understanding of that process. Now they own ARM. So they stand to profit off of every single ARM chip from every company if Windows is on ARM.
Yeah.
So they might be the ones to go in and say, okay, we're going to partner with you, Microsoft, or we're going to make this the best thing it can be, because we'll make money off of literally every chip that utilizes this.
That's a good point. And if they start heading in that direction, I'm scared for Intel.
Yeah, that is the specific reason that NVIDIA, being such a big company and buying this, makes me more okay. In general, like outside of Apple, who I just don't think would have fucked with ARM at all, NVIDIA is probably the one that I wanted to buy. In fact, NVIDIA is the one I wanted to buy at the most of all the big companies, because they're the only ones I feel like are already experienced enough with ARM and would actually want to support Windows and other things. Whereas, like, if Apple bought it, they would either completely leave it alone or they would
Yeah.
add stuff to it, but only the stuff that benefits them.
Right. And NVIDIA
They
is
would
going to be
mostly
more
be,
open.
yeah, I foresaw if Apple bought it, it would be more of a protection move rather than like an offensive move. Whereas I think NVIDIA stands to be more on the offensive and make plays, not necessarily changes to how ARM operates, but make other plays to make sure they can profit off of ARM the most.
And I think Windows is the area for the biggest growth there right now.
Yeah.
So,
by far.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, yeah, I mean, it's definitely the area for the biggest growth. I mean,
Yeah,
Linux
even if they
server,
can just take even if NVIDIA and ARM could take 10-15% of the laptop market, that would be massive amounts of money.
yeah, and finally bring a level of competition that we haven't seen in a long time. I feel like, and I've said this before in previous podcasts with AMD and Intel, is as we're getting more competition kind of coming up here for a lot of different types of chip manufacturing, I feel like we have consumers have a choice, but it's not akin to the choice we had 30 years ago. It's a choice of what type of product you want rather than just a choice of who's the best at overall, right? It's kind of like, if you're picking a laptop, say 5 years from now when we have ARM based laptops and we still have Intel and AMD based laptops, right? Like, then you have to start to question like what matters to what you're doing. And it's kind of cool to see a more something that's more specific, more focused in terms of what it's capable of doing, right? Like, you choose ARM if you want something that's got better battery life, and you choose AMD if you want something that can do high performance tasks, and you choose Intel if you're stupid. So it seems like a pretty interesting market to be in.
Yeah, and then like, we've talked about this with Apple and their architecture, but I'm much more interested in it from NVIDIA's perspective now, of this idea of what can ARM be pushed to? Like, what can it really do? We've only really seen it focused on outside of servers, which we, only few and far between right now.
Well, there's a
But like
lot of ARM servers, but they're not
high performance ones, I should say.
well, yeah, even then there's a lot of high
There's
performance ones, but they're just it's a matter of like they're high performance because there's so many chips because it's cheap, rather than high performance, with a smaller number of chips running at higher clocks, and and
it's
that's
like,
would be interesting.
What could we see NVIDIA do with like NVIDIA's like CUDA cores and whatever they can do with ARM on like a desktop class chip?
Yeah.
Like, could they make something that is, for the price at least, competitive with AMD or Intel?
Mm-hmm.
Because like that would be really cool if we could have something compete with like the higher end
Rather than
of
just
AMD or Intel while
yeah.
still being on ARM, rather than it just being like, oh, ARM is just the efficiency thing. Like, obviously that's what it's been focused on.
Yeah,
And
I
it's always
guess.
going to have some advantages there because of its instruction set, but like, what could it be pushed to is essentially all I'm getting at.
Yeah. Well, I mean, with the right development work done, right, and like that's where you start. I guess that's what I meant by having this choice, right? Though, is where you also, RISC computing is very different from x86 computing, and it's interesting to have those as options, right? Where you have an option of choosing something that can do everything, or you have an option that can do certain things really well. And so it's just a matter of like, okay, x86 might be the choice if you have a huge variety of things that you need to do at high performance, but you're going to pay more for it and you're going to get worse efficiency. Or you go the ARM direction, but like, with the hope being, of course, that, it can do a lot of things really well. It just isn't as branched as x86 because it never will be. But like
And
gaming,
it'll really
right?
depend on what tasks. If it can do really well at gaming when it's, really pushed to the limits, it's like if it can do gaming, we already know it can do things like video editing based on how well the iPad can edit without a fucking fan.
Yeah.
And so it's like if you can do those things, then it's like, does it just become competition around RISC chips in a while for like the consumer space?
I don't know if it'll head in that direction just because, like I think what we would end up seeing is like, oh yeah, X video editor is really good on ARM, but if you prefer a different editor, it's better on x86. And
I agree and disagree though, because like there's not many of the like high-end editors that are exclusive to Windows. And so unless they decide to drop Mac support, they're already going to be built and probably optimized for Apple Silicon, at
that's
least
true.
pretty well.
And a lot
Maybe
of
they
them are
won't be,
pushing more GPU
yeah,
anyway.
maybe they won't be the like absolute, as good on there, but I imagine they're going to have a decent amount of time put into optimization just because Apple's also doing it.
Right, right. I guess what I was getting at though is like, if you're a video, I guess a better example is like if you're a video editor and the video editing platforms work good on ARM, then you get lower price, more efficient, and better performance or similar performance.
Yeah.
But if you're that guy that, you have every fucking creative app on your computer that exists and every programming language on your computer that exists and every compiler, you do JavaScript and you do Python and everything, like it may end up being in a direction where it depends on what you're doing with your machine, what chips makes the most sense for you.
Yeah.
What I would like to see though is I don't want to see ARM desktop or laptops become more popular and have these like hardcore limits on what applications work. So I do think you're right that a translation layer is really important. It's
Oh
not
yeah,
like
I don't think Windows can get the app support for ARM ever, no matter what, without that translation layer.
agreed. Yeah, it's just like they
They
can't.
Yeah, Apple can move markets better than Windows can.
Hmm.
And so it's like Apple saying we are switching to ARM. Like the only way Windows could convince devs to start making them is if they said we're dropping x86 support, which is obviously not going to happen.
Right. I mean that kind of
Um
defeats the purpose of Windows as a platform anyway.
Yeah, it's like until there is the market share on Windows, I don't see how they're going to convince a lot of developers to take the time to make their app for ARM.
Yeah, it's kind of a catch-22 or chicken and egg kind of thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
where it's
Um
yeah.
Especially since Apple Silicon is so custom and is so unique. It's nothing like a lot of the ARM chips that we see on Android, and so it's also nothing like the ARM chips that will be for Windows. So how much of those apps will easily translate?
Hmm.
If you're making something more intensive, yeah, you might learn how to optimize for ARM better by making for Mac, but it's not like you can necessarily copy paste that code because Apple Silicon is not just x80 or is not just ARM chips. It's ARM chips plus the machine learning thing, plus the tensor cores, plus the video encoder, all these different small little things on the chip.
Right, right. And then those are things. Yeah. No, that's a good
Whereas
point. And I think
Qualcomm, it's mostly just your cores, your GPU, and maybe tensor cores depending on the unit.
yeah, yeah. And even then, we haven't seen we haven't seen that many of those. So I don't know. It'll be interesting. I do think I very much so agree that a translation layer is the only way to make this work good. And
Yeah.
like I don't want to be going out there trying to put 7-zip on an ARM based laptop and having it be super slow to unzip a half gig file. Like it's got it's got to still be able to do stuff. Like it's got to still be able to install and do everything that Windows does.
Hmm. Yeah. And then I am really excited to see what NVIDIA can do with AI and ARM because like they have been pushing AI stuff really hard
They've been one of the
already.
biggest pushers for it.
Yeah. And so that should be interesting. Um, and I think that's why. So as I mentioned when I was saying this, I said attempting to buy.
Yeah.
Obviously, it still has to get through government approval. Um, I feel like they have an advantage in getting the US government to approve them right now because, and this goes into the AI thing, China, their state media has called this merger disturbing. China is probably ahead of us in AI right now. Like realistically, the US is probably losing. Um, this would be
It's not the
huge.
only thing we're losing
Yeah.
it.
This would be huge though for essentially the whole Western world and AI.
Yeah.
Um, China definitely doesn't want this because it would hurt their leadership position.
That's also a good point, and that's incentive for this to go through and actually become a thing.
And then yeah, one other thing that I wanted to add as well. This is just something I don't know if this is normal for deals. It's not from what I mean. I haven't seen this mentioned before, but in their press release, NVIDIA mentioned that they will also issue 1.5 billion in equity to ARM employees.
Wow, that's nice.
Yeah,
That's another incentive. Well, I guess my personal opinion is I kind of hope it goes through.
yeah,
I mean, I don't usually like mergers and buyouts, but I hope this goes through.
yeah. Like my overall top, like NVIDIA is my top choice for companies that could buy it. I would prefer it just spin off to be its own company.
Yeah, I mean, I think that would be a good solution as well. It would that would be better for competition, but
But I get why it's not happening because the whole reason that they're leaving SoftBank is SoftBank need money,
yeah, yeah,
and 40 billion is a lot of money.
a pretty good chunk there from a company that can afford it.
Yeah, you know it's not a lot of money. Well, it is to some people, especially right now. But
But it's a good value,
yes,
except right now is the RTX 3080, and this was an interesting one to me. So we've got some review recaps here, but I actually, before I jumped into the review recap, I wanted to talk about this not paper launch at all. So this morning, I had no intention of buying a 3080. I'm planning to get a 3090 on launch, but I'm scared now. So this morning, though, I was watching the sales just because I was interested to see, how quick it sold out. Hopefully, getting an idea of what the 3090 launch might be like. And I'm not excited. I'm scared because it sold out from most companies in just a few seconds.
yeah,
Which was really unfortunate. And Newegg seems to have it for like 12 minutes ish, but they only had one card in stock at that point. I don't know if it was something that they restocked, or if it was just a card that nobody wanted and they have more of them or something. I'm not sure, but
yeah. According to NVIDIA, them and their partners are shipping more cards to retailers every single day.
oh well, that's good. That's good, potentially
So
good
I don't know
news then.
how who knows now if, let's say Newegg allocated their pre-orders for day one for like the first week of shipments, or if that was for just day
Right,
one
like
and
if
there's going to
they
be more
oversold,
orders.
yeah.
Yeah.
But it also makes me wonder if
Um,
they're shipping more 3080s over. There might be 3090s in that pile too, and so maybe the stock of 3090s is gonna be better. I gotta hope in every way that I can to try and get one of these GPUs that I've been waiting,
don't get
like
your hopes up.
3 years for. I'm just like,
Yeah.
oh man.
Also something interesting that NVIDIA specifically is doing because of this, they are manually reviewing orders to make sure that the customers that bought them are actual customers and not bots or
Good.
potentially scalpers. If they can find any evidence that they're a scalper, they're shutting down the order.
Wow, good. Yeah, because I hate that. Because like on eBay right now, like let me just pull it up because it's changing by the hour. Let's see if there's any RTX 3080s available right now. Let's see here. All right, let's see. Here's a Zotac Gaming RTX 3080 for $1,200. Here is a NVIDIA Founders Edition that is literally just a picture of the confirmed NVIDIA order for $1,700.
Yeah.
Like, here's somebody selling an NVIDIA GeForce RTX 3080 thank you card, not an actual GPU, for $500.
Wow.
A GeForce RTX 3080 Founders Edition, Paper Edition, $600. Because they're hoping people just grab it. Like it's a picture of the. Oh my goodness. Here's one though, a MSI RTX 3080 for $1,300. You guys get the point of this. Like this is just ridiculous. You see these these people that just take it and resell it for such a high value is absolutely ridiculous, and it sucks. And I'm not gonna pay $6,000 for a 3090. So I hope I can get one on launch at actual
Yeah.
normal
See,
price.
what you guys need to do is what the PlayStation fan base did of starting to put in fake bids. So like on the ones that are like most of the PS5s for sale are like best offer,
Uh huh.
or set price, so they just show the set price when you're looking.
Yeah.
But there's a few that are bid only, and people have been putting fake bids in. So like one of them is at $10,000.
I saw that was the funniest thing. Oh
Yeah.
man, it's crazy. But I
But
guess
yeah, what? Talk about the chips though. Like how good are
yeah,
they?
yeah. So I guess this will give you an indication of why people want them so bad. So the 3080 is actually impressive. Now it's not as impressive as we'd hoped. It is not a doubling in performance on a lot of things, but we're seeing
Well, these numbers are compared to the 2080 Super, which was better than the 2080.
no, this is true, but even then they were
I
not
don't expect
double.
it to be a full doubling, no.
Yeah,
But
no. In fact, it was more common, like 30 to I think. Well, no. So it was commonly like 30% over the 2080 Ti, and it was commonly like closer to 50 to 70% over the 2080 Super. Now, I'll go over the numbers here for you guys. So these are all based on Gamers Nexus. And so I want to give full credit to them. I want to say they did this. These are not my numbers. These are directly from what they had on their article, which will be linked in the description. These guys do fantastic work. I chose their numbers because I trust their numbers more than anybody else's out there, period. And so I just wanted to put full disclosure there. If you guys haven't heard of them, you probably have if you're watching this channel. But if you haven't heard of Gamers Nexus, jump over there, check out their place, buy shit from their store. They're awesome guys. But anyway, jumping into the performance. So Red Dead Redemption 2 at 4K, and in fact, all these games here are 4K. On the 2080 Super was running at 53.8 FPS. And on the 2080 Ti was running at 72.3 FPS. And the 3080 is running at 85.1 FPS. So again, you're looking at 2080 Ti, a 1500, I like to say that because a lot of the AIB ones were $1,300 to $1,500 card going up against is it $700 card? Now I'm losing my train of thought. Is it
$699?
$699, yeah. So $700 to, maybe like $800 for some of the AIB models. So that's already like a great value. But I also want to emphasize something here. This was in comparison to AIB 2080 Ti and 2080 Supers, not Founders Edition. And while the Founders Edition from the 20 series was good, these AIB cards commonly cool better, and also sometimes are binned better, and they're sometimes push their clocks a little higher. So I want to make that clear that, you might even see another 5% gap if you were comparing this directly to other Founders Edition cards.
Yeah.
So Rainbow Six Siege, again 4K. 2080 Super was 101 FPS. 2080 Ti was 160.7 FPS. And the 3080 was 178.7 FPS.
I would take 78-ish% better.
It's a pretty big deal. Yeah, it's pretty awesome. And again, even over the 2080 Ti, you're still looking at almost 20 frames per second on top of that. Shadow of the Tomb Raider at 4K. 2080 Super, 59.9 FPS. 2080 Ti, 73.7 FPS. And 3080 was 92.2 FPS. I got two more to get here. One of them is really important. So we also have Grand Theft Auto 5, still a pretty good game to benchmark. 2080 Super was at 65.8 FPS. 2080 Ti was at 79.1, and the 3080 was at 95.5. That's again, it's it's 15 frames on top of the 2080 Ti for what is effectively half the price. That's pretty impressive. Now, another fun one to look at, though, is the Rtx Performance. So, running Minecraft Windows Edition, Bedrock Edition, I think is the correct version,
Yes.
at 4K with RTX on, which is full ray trace global illumination for those that haven't seen it. It's not just ray trace reflections, and DLSS on. I didn't find numbers for DLSS off for Minecraft, but 2080 Super, 50.4 FPS, 2080 Ti, 64.5 FPS, 3080, 87.4 FPS, healthily breaching that 75 hertz mark if you're one of the people with that middle ground monitors like me that came out before you could really get 100 hertz for cheap. So like that is really awesome to see. So we are seeing a significant bump in ray tracing performance, which we expected. Now, I'm excited to see what the 3090 can do. This is really kind of like in my head, like, oh my goodness, I can't wait to see what that card can do. I hope I can get one. I hope I can bring you guys some of our own numbers, even if they're just rough numbers, Again, I choose Gamers Nexus because their numbers are going to be more accurate than anybody else's, but, I'd still love to do a mini review of a 3090.
Yeah.
So
Well, just don't fail at buying one.
I'm gonna try
Simple
really
as that.
hard, man. I'm getting up extra early so I can be completely like ready to leave the house for work, so that I can sit there on the computer at 6 a.m. refreshing, hoping to find one to buy. And if I don't get one, I'm gonna do what I did with the 3970X. As soon as I get to work, I'm gonna be there looking at the page all day long, seeing if I can get one. Because the 3970X came back in stock like 4 hours later. So
Yeah, didn't I send you the link when it restocked?
I think yeah, I think you did. Yeah, or
Yeah.
no, I think you did, and Newegg emailed me at the same time. And I was
Yeah.
like, "No, really?" And I was so happy because I opened it fully expecting to see out of stock, and it was there, and it
Yeah.
went in my cart, and I bought it, and I had it 3 days after launch or 2 days after launch. You know, I paid for the fastest shipping, so maybe I got it the day after launch. I can't remember, but man, that was exciting, and I hope I can do the same for the 3090 here, because I've been waiting for so long to upgrade the 1080 Ti's in here, and
Yeah.
it'd just be nice. I mean, not that these are a slouch, but I mean, a lot of games I am having to run down to like medium or even low settings sometimes to get the higher frame rates that I'm looking for at this resolution. Now,
Yeah.
the last thing I want to talk about the card, like benchmarks and stuff specifically, is this again is from Gamers Nexus, is power usage. And the 3090 is going to be power hungry because the 3080 is already pretty power hungry. So the power usage for just the card, 235.4 watts, stock Founders Edition. So that's going to be really interesting when we see the 3090 out, because that is already pretty hefty power consumption there. You know, you could see a single system pulling 600, 700 watts with one of these and a beefy CPU and, you know, some drives and stuff like that. So pretty crazy, honestly.
Yeah.
But
I don't really have much to add about the power usage.
are you
Good
thinking
GPUs.
about trying to get a 3000 card this year? Holiday
Probably
maybe
not.
or something? No?
I'm spending too much money.
You like, yeah, I get you. And you like your 2070, I presume, still.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really like. I mean, the game I spend the most time playing on my PC is RuneScape. That will
Yeah.
change temporarily for Cyberpunk,
Hmm.
but I just don't know if upgrading a GPU just for Cyberpunk is worth it.
No, I think you're right about that. And I mean, if your main games are not games that are GPU intensive, like you know, my main games are like, you know, Warframe, not crazy GPU intensive, but it's in that realm. But then like Doom, you know, can really use it. And obviously Cyberpunk, Elite Dangerous, stuff like that, right? But like, also I play RuneScape with you a lot, and it's like it'd be funny to buy a new GPU and mostly play
Yeah.
RuneScape.
Yeah. And then the other thing is, like, since I am getting a PlayStation 5,
Yeah.
like, I'm obviously going to be trying to play some games on that, especially Spider-Man at launch, and then, you know, presumably early next year is when I'm guessing Horizon's coming out. We could talk about that later. But it's like there's going to be a steady flow of games for that.
So finding time
Um,
for graphic intensive games on PC is not going to be
yeah,
as
and
common.
it's like I'm just going to play, you know, whatever, wherever for right now. It's not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
And then, because, like, let's be real, also, the PS5 is probably not that much worse than a 2070.
That's also true. Yeah, that's also a good point. And it's probably going to
So
be better at ray tracing.
maybe,
Maybe,
I
yeah.
mean, we'll talk about ray tracing when we get to the
We
PlayStation
definitely will.
stuff.
Yeah, and for those watching the part, you should totally go watch the full podcast, or at least if you don't care about Apple, jump to our PlayStation part, which will be out like 2 days after this one.
Yeah.
But the last thing I want to say before we do transition into Apple, well, actually, I lost my train of thought about that one. I'm proud of myself.
Good job. Oh, the other thing to mention about NVIDIA is that the RTX broadcast app is out now.
Oh, cool. Okay, yeah, I'm gonna
So
want
I
to
haven't
test
messed
that.
with it yet, but yeah,
Okay.
I mean, you'll have to on your guest rig.
Well, I mean, or if I can hopefully have a 3090 in a week,
That's true.
that'd be really nice. You know, I got
Yeah.
other stuff to do before I'd have a chance to test it on the 2060. But
What you should do if you do get the 3090
uh-huh.
is the podcast that we record whenever you get the 3090, whether it's next week or if it's a month from now or whatever. You should, like, essentially remove your chair from the scene, take a picture, and then use the RTX broadcast to do the green screen thing
Yeah.
and see how many people notice it.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea. I
Yeah.
like that. I think that's a very good idea. That'd be pretty funny too. I dig it.
Yeah.
I'm excited. I'm really excited for this launch, and let's just hope that NVIDIA can keep up with stock to some realistic level.
That's funny.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, they're so good, and people have been like, so many people are like, I'm skipping the 20 series. Like the 20 series did not sell well. That even if they have good stock, man, this is just poof, all gone.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, alrighty. Well, I think that's a transition over to the opposite of poof all gone, which is Apple, who usually supports things for a long time and has decent stock when new products come out.
Yeah, usually.
Depending, yeah.
Yeah, so Apple held their September event, and this one was not about the iPhone at all. No iPhones
Not even a
announced.
little mention other than the fact that iOS 14 is official.
Yes. Um, so here's what they did announce. It started with them talking about the Apple Watch Series 6. Um, now, this Apple Watch is visually not that big of a deal, upgrade wise. Like, it doesn't change the design that much. They didn't
Yeah,
extend the screen out or anything. There are new colors, there are new watch bands. They are doing a product red edition, which I really appreciate.
I love to see
Um,
that. Yeah,
yeah, I feel are they one of the only ones, like major companies, still doing product red stuff?
I don't see very much of it, so I think
Because like
so.
I know Microsoft back in the day, back when they sold like Windows 7 at Best Buy, they had a product red edition.
Windows 7 at
It was
Best
just
Buy.
like it was just Windows 7, but with like a red background. But it was just to support Project Red.
Yeah, and I don't think we're seeing as much of it, which is disappointing. And I feel like because
Yeah,
companies maybe think red products don't sell as well, but it's like that's not the point. The point
yeah,
is to try and do a good thing. So
yeah.
I'm really glad to see it back. I was actually like straight up like vocally excited.
Putting it and putting it in the flagship Apple Watch, not what we'll talk about later of the SE, because normally they've done
Uh-huh.
the product reds in the cheaper or the like previous gen lineup. It's not generally been like the iPhone Pro.
Yeah,
I think
right.
they did it with the iPhone 10R,
Yeah.
but not the actual 10 or the yeah.
Yeah, right. And so
Um,
it's like, yeah, I'm pretty impressed with them having that as an option here.
yeah,
And it's especially for like it's an incremental upgrade, and they still
yeah,
made that change, which is nice. Which actually I guess kind of just adds to the list of things that are different since it's a kind of short list.
yeah. So the biggest like the new feature rather than just the upgrade is that they added a blood oxygen reader. So it can do readings in about 15 seconds. And so like if you're hiking and you want to take it, if you you know are feeling out of breath and you want to take it, it can potentially even be like a warning sign for COVID in some cases, although in
Hmm.
a lot of cases if your blood oxygen level gets too low to where it would be a concern, you're already having symptoms. But on the off chance
Well,
you're not having
yeah,
symptoms
and
yet.
then among other possible health issues that come along
Yeah,
with
I'm
that,
talking
you
about
know.
specifically in the context of COVID.
Yeah.
Like usually with COVID and the way its symptoms progress, by the time your blood oxygen level is low, there's a problem.
Right.
However, if you notice it slowly dipping over time from normal readings, that's very helpful information for you to know, oh, maybe I should go to a doctor.
Yeah,
Um,
and I think it's great, and it's good in general. Like it's another one of those things where putting something conveniently on your wrist to monitor various things about you, just like the ECG, just like heart rate, just like blood oximeter, and hopefully being able to do blood sugar readings. Like that's the kind of stuff where it's like most people don't think about it, but you probably should be monitoring that stuff all the time because that gives you a lot of early warning signs of potential health issues.
yeah, it could like, and we already have seen, the fall detection save lives, the ECG save lives. This will probably end up saving some lives.
It probably will, yeah, and I think that's one of the goals behind the Apple Watch has been to hopefully,
Yeah,
again,
it
it's just that
is.
medical that not medical grade in the sense that you'd use it in a doctor's office, but just monitoring
Yeah,
those things consistently over time, even if it's got a plus or minus 5% deviation, is still really useful.
yeah, it is becoming a fantastic just health product.
Yeah.
Um, and in fact, in that regard, one thing I didn't have in the doc, but one thing that they did mention that they are doing now with the Apple Watch, in order to in part expand who can utilize the health aspect of it is they now have a family setup feature for the Apple Watch.
Oh yeah, that's
So this
right.
is specifically with the cellular models. But what this allows you to do is, let's say you as a parent have a kid, and they're reaching that age where you'd want them to have a phone for emergency situations, but not necessarily like a smartphone.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're also very active. They do sports, whatever. Well, now there's a way to buy an Apple Watch, set that up for them, so they have a way to call you, make emergency calls, and do the health tracking,
Yeah,
but
that's a good
without
point.
having an iPhone. And then
And
same thing
something,
for older people if
yeah,
they don't want to
and
have a
it's
smartphone.
also not as expensive as buying a
Yeah,
phone. So
yeah.
I think it's a cool idea, and it was something cool for them to show off. Of course, I still would like it if you could have an Apple Watch, a cellular edition or something, set up completely alone from an iPhone, so that if you're an Android user, you could still use the Apple Watch as a product.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I
that's
agree.
unlikely. I mean, or even just making it so you can set it up as an iPad, because for a while I was in the position of having, I have an iPhone now primarily, but having an Android phone. But Android tablets are garbage, so I have an iPad, but Apple
Mhm.
Watch won't work with iPad, so it'd be cool to see
Yeah.
that.
I do think that Apple is slowly moving things in such a way that I could see them eventually not having um, an iPhone requirement, but I don't think they would do anything to support like Android users being able to like have their apps work very easily with it. For example,
Yeah, I
I
think
think
that's
that you'd
true.
run into a situation where app developers would have to build their Apple Watch app to also have Android support.
Right, and you're just doing a
Um,
Bluetooth pairing basically at that point. It wouldn't be as
it
seamless and stuff.
Yeah, but the reason I think that they might move this direction is actually not to get Android users on board. More so, it's for people that don't otherwise actually need a smartphone.
Mm,
Again, going back to looking at the situation of like youth or elderly people who already don't have smartphones. There's a decent period of time where a phone and music device for people that are growing up would be very helpful, and a health device, but you might not necessarily want to get them fully on board with a smartphone, and there's not really many good non-smartphones anymore,
that's a good
especially
point.
if you want to do music as well. Whereas if you can have, your Apple Watch have your music streaming and downloads from Apple Music or Spotify or whomever, and then it can be phone calls, it can be fitness tracking, and then you have AirPods for when you want to listen to music. They already can pair with this.
Yeah.
You realistically, with a cellular version of this, once they improve the battery life enough, you don't necessarily need a phone. Right now, making phone calls would tank the battery on this. You wouldn't want to do it for a long time.
Yeah.
But if they can get it to where the battery life, I would say with the phone call battery life is as long on an Apple Watch as it is on an iPhone, then I
Hmm.
think they've reached the point where it would be appropriate to start having people literally only have this as like a semi-normal situation.
Yeah. Well, and then you pair that with something like AirPods or something where you're getting,
Yeah.
better voice control, better feedback. You
And
could use it as your device.
yeah, if you
So,
don't need a camera and if you don't need apps for anything, like
yeah.
it works.
Yeah, it's true.
And you can make payments with it.
You can do a lot of stuff. And to get back to the changes this time, so they made the screen brighter. The always on screen is significantly brighter, and they're claiming zero loss of battery life from that. So that's really nice for people that work outdoors that like to have the always on display functional.
I should clarify, they're saying zero loss in battery life compared to the current Apple Watch.
The Series 5, right?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good point.
Whereas if you turn off the always on display, you will probably still
Yeah.
get better battery
Or
life. It's not
or
like
if
they
you can set
managed to
brightness levels for it. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
it's not like they managed to somehow find a way to have the screen on and not
No,
affect the
yeah,
battery.
yeah, that's a good
That
point.
would be impossible, but that'd be cool.
Yeah, yeah, it'd be
It's
very
not
nice.
e-ink, they can't do it.
100% efficient screen. Yeah.
Yeah.
What happened to color e-ink, man? I missed that. When that was starting to become a thing.
Yeah.
So they did this new solo loop wristband that you can wear as well. That's
Mhm.
like you take a measurement, you print out a piece of paper and cut it out and take a measurement on your hand and or your wrist, And in theory, they have quite a few sizes, and it's supposed to fit really well. It's just a solid, flexible band. Like, that sounds funny, but I mean, like, there's no gap, there's no taking it apart. Like, it's just a singular
Yeah,
thing.
you just slip it on. It's supposed to be stretchy enough to slip around your hand
But then
when
still
you're
sit
like
tight.
forcing it, but then when you're not forcing it off to the side, it would stay in place on your wrist.
Yeah, so I'll be interested to see
Um,
how much people actually like it when we start to see more
yeah.
people get them and how long
And
they
then they
last.
also have a like yarn version of it as well.
I think that one looks really good. I don't like the
Yeah.
rubber one in terms of looks myself,
Yeah.
but
And it's yarn, but it's like silicon threaded.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
there is silicon going through it, I think, to help with the
I
elasticity or
honestly have
something. I
been
don't know.
considering potentially picking up one of these for my watch, which is again a nice thing is this does use the same connection mechanism as the Series 5. So all the bands are
Yeah.
interchangeable, which is nice
Yeah.
if you're one of those people that spent like $500 on like a solid titanium band or something like that, like you can still use it if you want the new watch. So I think that's important.
What do you think of the new leather link band that they have?
Yeah, so I'm actually pulling that up right now. So it's an interesting design. It's an interesting design to say the least, but I'm not sure if it's something that I would want to
Yeah.
buy. You know?
I don't personally like it that much.
Yeah, I mean it's
Like,
a
not just would I not buy it, I just don't really like the look of it that much.
yeah well, so the leather link, yeah, it looks like you're wearing a gear, but it's made out of leather. It's kind of weird.
Yeah.
I don't
I
know.
liked their old leather design look better. If they could have somehow integrated the magnet system of the new leather link with their previous like leather loop
Yeah, I think that
design,
would have
I
been
think
really
that would work
cool.
better.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's, I don't know. Some people might like it, but I think I agree.
Yeah.
I'm not overall a fan of it. Um, but I guess I will say this: at least they are sticking to here's more options for something that is a style piece for a lot of people.
Yeah.
I think that's a big deal there. And I also will
Mhm.
say that I can appreciate how much time and effort Apple spent on coming up with a really good connection mechanism for these. I have never had watch bands that I don't mind taking in and out and that hold so securely and don't break over time, and little
Mhm.
pins that fall off and shit like that. So, like, I'm really impressed, and the fact that they came up with a great design and they've stuck with it for a long time is really nice. In fact, let me look at that. I'm just curious here. So, yeah, so Apple Watch Series 3 and everything from there beyond fits all the same bands as the except the solo loop. The solo loop only fits Series 4 and newer. All other bands fit Series 3 and newer. That's a pretty long set of compatibility. And I don't know why the solo loop doesn't. It says here the solo loop and braided solo loop bands are only compatible with Apple Watch SE and Apple Watch Series 4 or newer. The 40 millimeter case works with these band sizes, blah, blah, blah. Whereas then it says you can match most bands with any Apple Watch Series 3 or newer case of the same size, as you would imagine. So I don't know why the solo loop is excluded there, because it looks like it's the same connector.
I think it has to do with um a couple of the specific sizing options not
Mm,
working very well with how those watches worked, I guess, or something. It is
hmm.
specifically from what I'm reading on a Mac Rumors article, um, a couple of sizing options that omit the older watch cases.
Huh.
And so Apple is just saying they are all only compatible to make it simple.
Yeah. But I guess it still goes back to the point I was making of I do appreciate that. I mean, you're looking at watches that came out years ago, and you can use the same
Yeah,
bands for it, and they
because
keep coming out with new band styles.
there's 18 different sizing options for the solo loop.
Yeah, so that would, I guess that makes sense then.
So and there's
I'd like to
like
see somebody try it just to see what it's
yeah.
like. See if maybe the connector works, and it just something else is weird about it. I don't know.
Mhm.
It's interesting though, and I really do like to see this. This is something that no other watch company
Yeah.
is really getting
And it
right now for smartwatches.
Yeah, and it should also be noted, so the like some of the sizes only fit on some of the so like the 40 millimeter watch will work with the size 1 through 9,
Mm-hmm.
and the 44 works with sizes 4 through 12. So 4 through 9 work on both, but 1, 2, 3, and 10, 11, 12 are specific to watches. So presumably it's something to do with how wide this part is my guess as to why some of them won't work on the older one,
No,
because
that does make
the older one
sense.
is a little bit different
Yeah,
physically.
right. That makes sense. Even
So
then though, I mean, they're still selling the Series 3 too, which is nice.
yeah,
If you want to get something just cheap, you want a smartwatch, it's
yeah.
an
So
amazing
the
option.
Series 6 is what, $400, right? 399
Uh,
for the Wi-Fi edition.
I believe that's correct. Yeah, or it might be 450. Let me double check here while we're
I
doing
think it's
this.
399 for the 40 millimeter, and then
Yeah,
450
I
for
think you're
the
right there. I'm waiting for Apple's site
um
because it's nice and slow. Uh, so it looks like it's
yeah, it's 399.
399. Yeah, you're right. Yep.
And then you have the Apple Watch Series 3 that is still for sale for 299, and then you have the new one, which we'll talk about in a bit, for 279. So they have like a pretty good price range.
They do, yeah. And I mean, the Series 3
Um,
is cheap enough and still very capable, which is another thing that I appreciate.
yeah. Um, there's one last thing with the Series 6 that they announced. So they started talking about how, as they do at every event, they started talking about their products and the environment. And they talked about how, like, the packaging of the Series 6 watch is made from either, like, 100% of it is either recycled material or taken from um, like very specific forests that were chosen because of how they treat the environment and stuff like that.
Right.
Um, so they're being very specifically careful about that. But then they started talking about how, like, their facilities are changing to reduce carbon emissions, and how they are, on top of their own facilities changing things, they are funding other companies' facilities and in ways to reduce carbon emissions. And then they started talking about another thing that they're doing to reduce emissions and waste. And that is, and obviously money is another reason they're doing this. But what they announced was that there is no USB adapter included in the Series 6 Apple Watch.
Yeah, which we kind of, in some ways, expected, I suppose. I mean, we knew they were heading in this direction one way or another.
I honestly forgot the Apple Watch even came with a USB adapter.
Yeah. I mean, it comes with a wall wart, but I don't use mine. A lot
Yeah,
of people aren't going to use theirs. So
yeah,
I think it's fine. The one thing that I think is really important as we move away from wall adapters being included in phones is A, making it extremely obvious that it doesn't come with one, and B, stores that you can buy them at need to really seriously keep more stock of them. Because it
yeah,
would suck to want to buy a phone and you don't have a charger for it because they don't have any there, you know.
yeah. To your first point, I really appreciate Apple making it a point to say this. This was not a mention or a note in a slide. This was not something that we found out on their website after. They straight up said they are not doing this as a part of their presentation.
Yeah. Yeah,
Which
which
is
like it
how they
makes it
should
really
do it if you're going
obvious.
to make that type of change.
You don't do it on the back end. Yeah, you
Yeah,
explain why and you tell everybody. You're really loud about
it's
it.
it's like how Apple said they were removing the headphone jack from phones and did it, whereas Android phone makers made fun of Apple for doing it and then silently did it the next year.
Yeah. Yeah. Now I still miss headphone jack. I'm gonna say that I miss Jack. He was a nice Jack, but I will not miss wall warts. I have a drawer full of them because I don't want to throw them away. And they do come in handy once in a while, but it gets annoying having as many as I do. Um, as long as it still
Yeah.
comes with the cable, like fine.
The one thing I think that Apple should do
Hmm.
in the scenarios where they're removing this is, if you're ordering it from them at least, because obviously they can't control every company's stock, they should give you the choice of which charging cable it comes with.
Agree.
Because
Yes.
not a lot of people have USB-C wall warts.
And that's everything. Everything's coming with that.
Yeah.
A lot
And
like my
so,
AirPods came with that, and I was
mhm,
surprised. I was like, oh yeah, that's right, they're doing that now. Like USB-C, all the things, please, but also my like 15 ports of USB power that I have mounted to my nightstand are USB-A.
yeah, because the best argument they have for why they should do this also comes at a time when it's the worst time to do this. If they would have done this 5 years ago,
Nobody'd
not
care.
everyone would have had the USB outlets.
Yeah.
If they were to do it now, the issue is that, yeah, a lot of people have USB outlets, but it's USB-A.
Yeah. So 2 years, 3 years ago would have been a better sweet spot.
Yeah, I think
But
so.
interesting.
But yeah, I mean, I think especially for the Apple Watch, where when you're ordering it, you already pick the watch and then the band, and they come in separate packages
Just give you that option for
with the
the
cable.
cable. I think that's a great idea, and that was something I was thinking of too. Or the other option would be to include a cable that has a built-in adapter, like some of them do, which if you can do it right, aren't annoying. You know, where you have a USB-C to A adapter on the end that's removable.
Or just offer a checkbox that's include adapter at no additional cost.
Yeah. Just as long as people aren't having to pay for it. That's the annoying part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now for the next thing they announced was
speaking of
another
paying.
Apple Watch. Yeah. So this one is $279 starting price. This is the Apple Watch SE.
Which we all expected, right? Like, this was a rumor I think you and I have even talked about.
Yeah. What's really cool about this, so it's essentially the chip from the Apple Watch Series 5 in the body of the Apple Watch Series 4 for $279.
And that's
It's got
pretty
some
insane.
downsides. It's got some downsides compared to, say, the Apple Watch Series 5. It doesn't have always on display. That's
Which
the
for
biggest
some
one.
people is a huge deal because, you know, if your watch is a style piece, like, because people can make the logic argument of, well, you're not going to look at your watch if you're not looking at your watch, right? Like, you're not, you know, right? But it's a style thing for a lot of people, and being able to do a custom watch face that looks nice when you are, you know, it's just something that people care about. And so I want to put that in. Yeah, some people. So I want to say in there that for some people that is a big deal. You know,
but also, like, so is $120, and so it's like for some people, if you don't care about the health aspect of the Apple Watch, and you're mostly buying it for, say, the notifications, music when you're running, that type of thing, then it really comes down to, like, is that feature worth it for a lot of people? Probably not. It's a nice to have. It's not always a need to have.
No, it's true. Yeah. I was just pointing out that people care about it. Like, I'm not the type of person, like, I wouldn't not buy something because it doesn't have an always on display, but I definitely do have a preference towards it. But if I was looking to save $120, I'd be okay with letting it go. But then it's also, you go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say it doesn't have the ECG.
Yeah. Which is, you know, I don't know. I don't use my ECG sensor on mine all the time. But it is, you know, it is an omission that does matter. It does still have the same heart rate sensor though. So I want to emphasize, if what you care about is heart rate, like, you're good to go.
Yeah. And I do like the option of, like, if you look at it, you know, you can kind of look at it in this way, is like the Apple Watch SE is like the fitness device, whereas the Series 6 is the health device.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. Yeah, and then the Series 3 is the
SE
notifications.
is more of an activity tracker. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think that's a good point. And, you know, obviously it's still going to do fine with everything else, you know, in general. And it does have a cellular option, which is really important to a lot of people. So I'm glad that it has that. And again, the same heart rate sensor, not a weaker or less accurate heart rate sensor, which you'd expect, because why make more than one? But still.
Yeah. So yeah, overall pretty good product. Good price. You can get a cellular option if you want. Just great. The next thing they announced was a refresh of their 8th generation iPad.
We're kind of seeing like
their iPad,
like trend here of budget oriented products, and you know, like lower end, like cheaper products, right? And like with the iPhone SE, it was a fantastic phone, right? For the price. But what I'll say is, as we get into this a little more, like, seeing that with the Apple Watch and the iPad impresses me personally, because like they're not generally the target audience for me, but to see that in a market where they don't really have any competition and they're still trying to make a cheaper version for everybody to afford is interesting. To see that with something like an iPad, where Android tablets are garbage, like you just shouldn't buy one.
Android tablets are garbage. Android smartwatches are garbage.
Yeah, the only competition they have in smartwatches is from Samsung.
Yeah.
Or I guess kind of Garmin if you're really into hiking and stuff.
Yeah.
Um,
What's
yeah,
also really nice is you can get an iPhone SE, an Apple Watch SE, not even the cheapest Apple Watch, but the SE, and the brand new 8th gen iPad for $8 more than an iPhone 11 Pro.
yeah, that's a lot of device, a lot of
Yeah.
good device for that
If
price.
you're, if you're just making the switch over to Apple, or if you are getting your kid a smartphone and his tablet for school and you want to get him a watch, like being able to do that for the same price that a couple of years ago you would have paid for just the top end iPhone,
Hmm.
or just the iPhone before the 10R,
Yeah, yeah.
before they really, because it was previously they were selling multiple year old ones as their cheap phones
Hmm.
rather than having a new one. Um,
Which is
Overall,
usually
just
like based on an older design and just different internals, which I appreciate.
yeah.
Like the iPhone SE, where it's like here's a it's an older iPhone body, so they can recycle things, keep the same design,
Mhm.
same templates, same machinery, but then up the specs to something better.
Yeah. So yeah, the big upgrade with the new iPad is that it moves from the, what was it, like A10, I think it has. I don't think it had an A11, right?
I don't think so. No,
But it moves up to the A12 chip, the A12 Bionic, which is a good chip.
it's a very
Um,
good chip.
and I mean that's really the big upgrade for this one. It
It's the
wasn't a
biggest one.
huge change. But it's a cheap system, or a cheap iPad. And if you,
They had the A10 in the seventh gen.
okay, that's what I
Yeah,
thought.
yeah.
Yeah, so you're getting 2 years worth of chip upgrades.
Hmm.
And then the other nice thing with this is, um, what was I gonna say? Wow, I
A lot of
blanked.
things.
Yeah. Oh,
It's the smoke. Blame it on our
since it
smoke.
supports, yeah, since it supports Apple Pencil, you get iOS 14 and you get the Apple Pencil. And this supports the cheaper iPad or Apple Pencil because it's still Lightning.
Right, right, yeah, yeah.
Um,
So that also helps save money there, which is actually cool.
yeah. So if you want the new iPad and the Apple Pencil, um, it would all in all be like $429. Oh, the thing that I was gonna say also though, if you have an education account, so if you are like freshman in college and you have a .edu email, you can get $30 off of this as well.
Oh, that's actually a significant chunk when you're talking about this pricing. So
Yeah, it's almost 10% off.
yeah, that's really nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, I think it's a valid upgrade. I'm glad to see something in the budget area that's like that, but I'm actually more excited for this next one, which is the new iPad Air. Um,
Also known as the iPad Pro Lite.
yeah, yeah, which is
I think
like
that's a good description of it.
it's a very good description of it. And so, you take an iPad Pro with the new, sharper edges. I say new; it's been around for several years, but the sharper edges, and the pretty big bezels, but smaller bezels. The newer style, and it is actually in the same sizing as like pretty much the same case and tooling as
Mhm.
the standard size, the smaller iPad Pro, which is an 11-inch, right? I think.
Yes.
Yeah. And so this is 10.9 inches. They had to make it just a little smaller. And it's a budget, as the iPad Air has been, a budget of the nicer one. It's like in that middle ground, right? It fits in the Magic Keyboard. Yes, it fits in the Magic Keyboard for the iPad Pro 11-inch. So no, you do not, like, they're not having to make a new one. And they're not, they're not fucking over people that are potentially using one already. Although you probably have an iPad Pro at that point, but still, it makes sense. Now, no Face ID. That's a big money saver for them. It has one camera. It does have a Retina display, as they call it, with True Tone, which I was surprised to see True Tone on it. I don't know if you were, but
No, not at
no,
all.
not you don't think so for that price. And it's running
It's
the.
a They already would have still, even with getting rid of um the Face ID, they still have some sensors on the front. Throwing in that one, and to have a consistent product stack, and then True Tone is actually like a very well liked feature among like artists and stuff. Like people that are used to like drawing on paper, for example,
Hmm.
expect that color shift, and so they like that on that device.
Well, I think it's great for mobile devices too. I don't personally like it for laptops. Iffy on, definitely not like desktop monitors. But of course you can turn it off, so whatever. But I think it's great on a mobile device, and even if you're not an artist, I really do like the True Tone displays for.
Oh yeah, so do
Yeah,
I. I've
it's
ever
so
since
much
I
better on my
first
eyes. Like it just is.
yeah, ever since I first got a device with it, like it's one of those things where like you don't necessarily notice it at first because it is natural. Like
Yeah,
that is
you're
the
supposed to
point.
not notice it. Yeah,
But then when you go to a device that doesn't have it, you're like, "Oh God, I hate this."
dude. So
That was so much better.
I had to test some stuff on my OnePlus 7T today, which I still feel like is still definitely one of the best Android phones out there, the McLaren edition specifically. And like I was like, oh man, I remember why I switched and why I don't like Android. There's just so many
Yeah.
things where it's just clunky. There's no True Tone display. The display is fantastic on it. It's brighter and
Mhm.
sharper, but it's not as color accurate as the display on the iPhone.
Yeah.
So I think it's
Um,
cool.
we'll talk more at the end of this about some stuff because iOS 14 dropped, so we'll have some stuff to
Yeah.
add about that.
Yes.
Um, the other stuff with the iPad Air though, so the A14 Bionic is something I really wanted to touch on in that it is a lot of people are saying like there's no reason to buy the iPad Pro when the iPad Air is going to have a newer chip. And it's so similar in so many other ways. Um, until we get benchmarks, it's hard to know for sure because this is, them switching over to 5 nanometer. So obviously, cores aren't necessarily going to be the same performance and all that. But like, people forget how much of a monster of a chip the A12Z that is in the current iPad Pros is.
Which I think is important to emphasize that Z for the Apple is not like, oh, it's an incremental upgrade. It's a
Yeah,
huge difference from the regular
yeah.
A12.
So the A12 was a 4-core CPU, 4-core GPU chip. It was too big, too little for the CPU cores, and then the 4 GPU cores. The A12X, which was found in the previous generation iPad Pro, was 8-core CPU, 7-core GPU. It was actually an 8-core, but because of yields, one was turned off.
Hmm.
And then the A12Z is essentially the ultimate version of that chip, and that
Yeah.
is the 8-core CPU, 8-core GPU chip with 4 big, 4 little CPU cores, and then the 8 GPU cores.
Yeah. So
So
it's
it is a
probably still going to be significantly faster. Probably.
yeah. There is a reason that Apple put the A12Z in the transition kit for developers.
Yeah. For the Mac Mini
Let's just say
transition kit,
that.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, definitely. So I think people worrying about it, it's like, and also saying there's no reason to buy the iPad Pro. It's like, if you want a big screen, which if you're doing a lot of work, that you might want the bigger
120
screen.
hertz is not on the
And
Air.
yeah, yeah. Plus, the screen is probably
Face
just
ID.
better from the Pro. Like, it's probably brighter. I
Yeah.
don't think we know the resolution exactly yet, but it's probably better. I'll see if I can find it. I've actually got the spec page open. Yeah, so it is same PPI because it's Retina, so they follow Retina. But still, it's yeah, it's not as bright. Yeah, it doesn't. It goes. The one on the Pro goes up to 600 nits. This one's 500, and that 100 nits when you're talking in that range is pretty significant. And then no ProMotion, like I said, no 120 hertz. So there is still reasons to get the iPad Pro, just to be clear.
Yeah.
And then we also had the Apple Pencil mount that it does have on it with wireless charging for the second gen Apple Pencil.
Yes. Which is great.
Hmm.
I really like being able to charge it and not have it sticking out of the port.
That was such a weird way
Um,
of doing things.
I understand why they don't. I still really hope to see Apple eventually include another Apple or pencil charger on the left side for people that are left-handed.
Yeah, that would be. Well, wait, an Apple Pencil charger. Wait, you said
So,
because when you're holding it in portrait. Sorry, my
yes. So
my iPad's
like
in landscape 100% of the
I'm
time.
left-handed, so I have to reach over, which is fine. It's not that big of a deal, but it's just
It'd be nice.
compared to right-handed users where they pick it up and
Yeah.
use it just
It's
more
just
naturally.
having to have that wireless charging on there is also they have
Oh,
to
I
fit
know.
that
I
in
know they're
there.
not going to do
Yeah,
it. I completely understand why. I just
it'd
will
be
still
nice.
I still will wish that they do it.
Just use your iPad in landscape mode instead of portrait. Come on.
I can just use it upside down, actually.
Oh yeah, that's also true. Yeah, because they don't
And in
like it
fact,
doesn't matter anymore.
can I portrait lock it upside down? That
Probably,
might.
yeah. And then Face ID works fine upside down still, so whatever.
Hang on. Let's see if I can.
So I did say it was Magic Keyboard compatible.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. I can portrait lock it upside down. Why didn't I ever think of that before?
I have no idea.
Okay. Yeah, don't worry about it, Apple. We're good.
So let's see, and it's made out of 100% recycled aluminum. And then what's this in here about the Apple Watch?
Oh.
Or was that put in by one of us by mistake?
That was put in the wrong spot.
Okay, no worries. So yeah, 100% recycled aluminum, which is really nice to see too. I'm glad to see that. And that's pretty much it for the new iPad Air. I don't think we actually said the price though, so I should probably mention
$599.
Yeah, which is not bad. Now, I do want to mention one thing because I'm considering buying this for somebody. It's only 64 gigs of storage. If you want the 256, you have to jump another $150 up. So they are charging quite a bit.
150 jump? Damn.
Yeah, they're charging quite a bit for that extra storage actually. Yeah, it's $750 for the 256 gig and $600 for the 64 gig. And then I think they're also charging, let me see here. Yeah, so if you want the cellular model, yeah, 130, yeah, so that's normal, but I feel like you should get a discount if you buy the 256 with cellular, because that's $879.
I feel like they should just make the 256 a $100 jump.
Yeah, that would be better. So that's something I wanted to note too, because 64 is kind of like if there was a 128 model, you know. That's
I have a 64 on my Pro.
Oh really? Oh.
I got the base model.
Oh, my Pro's a base model, but the base model isn't it 256 for the bigger Pro then? That must be what it was.
No, I don't know. I thought mine was 64.
No, they start at 128. Both iPad Pros start at 128. I'm looking right now.
Okay.
But I think I have 256 on mine. I think I went a step up.
I'm pretty sure you did, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's 128. Okay, I was wrong.
But then, like, if we're looking at the iPad Pro 11-inch, really quick pricing on that, like, that's $800 for the 11-inch. And then you want 256 gigs, it's only a $100 jump, but that's still $900 versus the, $750 that you're paying for the...
Yeah, however, that then... It does make an interesting thing of if you look at it at, is the iPad Air... Obviously, if your budget is sub $800, you're going to look at the Air. But if it's not a budget concern and it's just are those features worth the price concern, someone might look at $200 as a price difference and say, no, 200 isn't necessarily worth it. But maybe if you're going to get the 256 gig, for some people, 150 might be like at the edge of what is worth it for those extra features.
Yeah, I mean, better camera, full LiDAR, nicer screen that's a ProMotion display, and a better assumedly better processor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and you can also just wait until, later this year.
Yeah, for sure.
Or early next year, I mean, for the next Pro. Probably next year.
Yeah. So now we're going to kind of jump into services from Apple because that's been a bigger and bigger thing for them.
Yeah, so they had two big service announcements. The first one was a new subscription service, a new product, Fitness Plus. This is a new fitness program. So there's a number of these different subscription services. Peloton has one. Peloton stock actually dropped quite a bit after this was announced.
Not surprised.
But there's a number of different apps on the App Store that are... You pay to have world-renowned trainers do video lessons, essentially, not in real time, but pre-recorded lessons from big-name people.
$10 a month for real chat with people. That'd be kind of crazy.
Yeah. So yeah, it's $10 a month though, or $80 per year. You get workout classes by a bunch of top trainers. I was reading something online where somebody realized that one of the people in the images that Apple uses for the Fitness Plus advertising was a pretty well-known trainer from San Francisco who moved and left her business and nobody knew why.
Oh, interesting.
And it was because Apple offered her probably a very significant amount of money to become a trainer.
Can I just interrupt here and say that $9.90, so $10 a month or $80 a year is a more significant discount than you usually see on products. That's $120 a year versus $80 a year. That's a $40 price difference if you pay yearly.
Did you see the image I sent you, by the way, earlier today? There was a service that I was looking at. It is a like workout app that has like it's for like tracking like weight training and stuff.
The Bolt Pro?
Yeah, look at the pricing.
What? $90 a year or $2 a month?
Yeah. I was so confused. I uninstalled and reinstalled the app to make sure it wasn't corrupted when I downloaded it.
And the fine print says it too. What?
Yeah.
That makes no sense.
I wonder how many people they have like tricked into getting
Like
the
debated,
annual version.
yeah. Oh man.
Yeah.
What? $24 a year versus 90.
You pay more than
What?
3 times as much if you do the annual
If
subscription.
you dedicate yourself for a year. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's what it is. They're like, you know what? You're willing to spend this money if you really
Yeah.
want to work out. No.
But yeah, so $10 a month or $80 per year for Fitness Plus. There's going to be new workouts weekly. It's very Apple Watch focused, both in being able to start workouts and stuff. Obviously, you'll be able to play the videos back on your iPad, your iPhone, your Apple TV, whatever
Yeah.
Apple product.
But it uses
But
the
there will
watch.
be workouts that like if you don't need the video classes for it, like tracking and doing some of the workout routines that are preset in there, you'll be able to do from there. So if you already know the movements, you don't need to watch the video.
And then if
but
you
you'll be able
are
to get
watching the video, the Apple Watch is used to track your movements and stuff, I assume, to
Correct.
kind of line up
Yeah.
with it. Yeah, okay.
And then also, this will like obviously have Apple Music integration, and so like when you are when you're doing workouts,
Mhm.
the workouts will have like each workout will have like its own music choices, but they'll have a variety of genres that they pick music for. So like if they listed off like, you know, if you like country or trap or rock or whatever, they'll have different playlists for each workout
I like that.
for those. And then you can save those to your Apple Music pretty easily. So if you really like the playlist or if you want to use that for a workout again, you can like one click save it.
I'm definitely going to try this out, see what it's like. It seems very interesting. So
Yeah.
I'm excited to give it a shot. And
Yeah, and then if you buy an Apple Watch, you get 3 months of it for free. And if you already own an Apple Watch, but you happen to be a Best Buy Rewards member, Best Buy is giving 2 months away for free.
Now, let's be clear. Do you have to have bought that Apple Watch from Best Buy? Do we know?
No.
Wow.
You just have to be a rewards member and have an Apple Watch so that you can redeem it.
That's cool. That's actually
Yeah,
really
it's
cool.
like a-
Huh.
Yeah.
Little promotion from them. That's nice.
Yeah.
I think that's important too with a kind of new, you know, there are fitness services, but this is one of the first like really massive ones, and I think giving people trials so they can see what it's like, because a lot of people probably haven't used other fitness services, is
That,
important.
and it's one of the first ones not from a dedicated fitness company. You know, if you you know see fitness from Apple versus fitness from a gym or fitness from like Chris Hemsworth starting up an app,
Yeah.
like that's obviously a little bit different of a scenario, and you might have different feelings about it than big tech company that normally makes hardware launches fitness app.
Yeah. But their other
So the
services
free-
have been pretty good.
Yeah, but I feel like, you know, a music service is quite a bit different
Yeah, like digital
as far as whether
content.
or not it will be quality
Mhm.
than a fitness service. And so that's where I think, you know, like you were saying, having the trial is really helpful, because people that are on other services might
Can
be
give it a
hesitant
shot.
for Fitness Plus, but if it's free to try it for a couple months and you know it's going to be quality because it's been quality for a few months, that's different.
Yeah, and then especially with the pricing of potentially saving you money versus whatever you're using existingly, like if you're paying for this Pro plan for Bolt Pro.
Yeah, I don't know what's up with that.
It does not compute.
Yeah.
But services,
And then
man.
if you want to talk about pricing, ooh, Apple One. I just real quick, I just love that they're marketing this. They called it Apple One. They mentioned having one subscription service, but there's 3 tiers.
Yeah, so that's true. It's not really one, but I mean, I get the branding, and I've been going to this page every day to see what's available. So it says coming this
It's
fall, and I'm like, it's September
it's
17th. Like,
yeah.
come on.
So here's what this deal is. So tier one is the individual option. This is so individual and family are their like entertainment subscription packages, and then
Mhm.
there's the premier one. So individual is Apple Music, Apple TV Plus, and Apple Arcade, as well as 50 gigs of iCloud storage for $15 a month for you.
Mhm.
The family plan is the same thing, but bumped up to 200 gigabytes of iCloud storage.
Is that per user or total?
I'm pretty sure it's shared.
Okay, I would assume so. Because if that
Um,
was per user, $5 extra to get 5 other people, that'd be kind of crazy.
yeah. So 200 gigs of storage, and it works with 5 other people, so a total of 6.
200 gigs is plenty to back up most people's phones though and stuff.
Yeah.
So I think that's a good point. But
Yeah.
Premiere is the one I'm excited for.
Oh yeah. So $30 a month, you get music, TV, arcade, news, fitness,
TV Plus and
and
News Plus, right? It's the plus version of everything, correct?
yeah.
Okay.
I'm just talking essentially about you get their paid subscriptions for all of these, and 2 terabytes of cloud storage, and it works with up to 6 people.
Of
5
course, if you
additionals
get it
plus you.
yourself, then you get 2 terabytes of storage.
Yeah.
Now, I just want to factor in here that yes, like Google Drive and stuff, their pricing has gone down, and you can get like 2 terabytes for like $5 a month now. I think it is, but this is still such an incredible price.
Yeah.
For
I mean,
what
you
you
can
get.
get 2 terabytes of storage from Apple for, I think it's $10 a month.
Yeah, so it's $10 a month from Google Drive. So I bet you it's $10 a month. But then you think about
Yeah.
$20 a month then paying for you get music, TV Plus, arcade, which comes with quite a few games, News Plus and Fitness Plus. That's a lot. Plus the fact that that's for a total of 5 people.
Yeah.
Like that's pretty impressive. And I think that's also important is like so like a lot of music services don't really work on the Apple Watch as a standalone thing right now, and that's their own fault, not Apple's fault. But
Yeah. It was Apple's fault until like a year ago.
and nobody's done anything, which is just weird.
Pandora's done stuff. Spotify, I've gotten the test a while ago. Some people are just now getting it that are on the live build, but you can now stream to the Apple Watch, but there is no
Mm.
way to offline music.
Yeah, that's frustrating. And then even then,
Yeah.
like with like Tidal and stuff, I can't stream to it, and that's a little frustrating. It's just like if I'm far enough away from my iPhone. I mean, I guess if I have Wi-Fi, but like if you're the type of person that goes to the gym and you put your phone in the locker and just wear your watch, like that can kind of be a pain to not be able to have offline music.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Especially when like the APIs are there. It's been
Mhm.
over a year since the APIs have been released.
Yeah.
It's just we haven't put in the work to do this.
Yeah, and so like my point was like I won't subscribe to Apple Music as a standalone service because the amount that I need it on my Apple Watch is not enough to justify me spending the money on it. But if it comes with all this other stuff, it's just a benefit where I can have that as my dedicated music player on my watch.
Yeah. That's exactly how I'm going to use it as well because like I'm not going to cancel my Spotify subscription. I've gotten way too good of a deal. I pay $10 a month and I get Spotify and Hulu.
It's insane.
And then for me, the big thing with Spotify that's made it hard to switch is I use Spotify on a lot of different devices. My PlayStation 4, my watch, my phone, my iPad, my computer. And I do switch devices, like the device that I'm actively using quite a bit.
Mhm.
And Spotify, for some reason, no one else has done this, but Spotify has the ability for any device to play back audio on any, or like to change which device is active. Like I can start from my phone playing music on my computer, or I can play music on my PS4 and then change the song for my watch.
Yeah, and we need more people to be doing that, like more companies. That's something that I
Yeah.
miss too. Spotify has a lot of features now. Being an audiophile, of course, like I stick with Tidal. It doesn't matter. Like it's not enough of a benefit to me to have all these extra features, and like sometimes Tidal like bugs out and doesn't keep playing, and I have to restart the app and stuff. But the quality's worth it to me. But if they want that service to become more popular, one of the things they need to do is have better integration.
Yeah.
So which Apple Music's pretty good about, I think, right? I mean, not as good as Spotify, but
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't have anything like that, but obviously it has offline music on your watch and
mhm.
integration with other services and stuff. So
Yeah, so that's nice.
yeah. And yeah, so just overall really good. You do get a month free if you already have had other services. Like let's say you currently have Apple Music, or in my case, I currently have TV Plus because I bought an iPad and you get a year for free. Um, and I have News Plus because I got a subscription elsewhere at a special deal. So the way that the trial works is that it's for any services you haven't already tried. So if I
Mm.
sign up for the trial, for example, I have had music in the past, but I have not had arcade and I have not had fitness. So I would just get a trial of those
Okay, that makes sense.
because I've already used my trial of the other services.
No, that's a sensible way to do it. I mean, because they
Yeah.
lose quite a bit of money on trials for stuff like this.
Yeah.
So that makes logical sense. And then we
Um,
got an update, didn't we?
yeah. iOS 14, iPadOS 14, watchOS 7, and tvOS 7 are released. They were released
tvOS
yesterday.
14.
Oh, yes. Sorry.
No, you're good.
Uh,
So
they
they
were
gave
released
developers a
yesterday.
lot of warning about this, right?
Developers are pissed off at Apple for that. Um,
Oh man.
yeah, they gave them a day's notice, and it took like maybe an hour or two after this announcement for them to even drop the final build of Xcode. So they had
Yeah,
like the final code base and the final release, and they had 24 hours to get their updates out.
bro, the amount of overnight developers just pulled for
Hmm.
Apple is crazy. And
I
even then,
saw
like,
the developer of Apollo was tweeting. He was like, he was actually kind of excited because he hasn't done like an all-nighter for development in a long time. But he was like understanding like that it's not like a good situation.
yeah, yeah.
And he said he got like 2 hours of sleep.
Yeah, no, that's what happens with this, and like usually they give like a week notice at least, so
Yeah,
it's a little weird, and I don't know. I feel like there's probably a mistake, a miscommunication, something that triggered that, because that's not how.
I don't think it could have been a miscommunication. I think it was just Apple wanting to surprise drop it
Oh,
to
maybe
consumers.
that could be, but it still sucks for some developers, and there are some apps that are like broken and stuff that aren't working completely because of it.
Yeah, not many, but there are some.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I actually know of one. I'm not going to get into it, but I know of one app that is having
Yeah,
issues because of it. Which it's fine to have issues when I was on the beta, but
yeah.
so
Oh, speaking of beta,
yeah.
if you're on the developer channel or if you want to get onto the developer channel, the 14.2 beta has dropped. Right now, the updates seem pretty minimal. For example, like one of the things they added was you can now add a toggle for Shazam in your control center.
That's release noteworthy.
Yeah. Um, so like that type of thing, it's a few small things here and there and probably some bug fixes. Although interestingly enough, and I think this is probably because it's coming a day after the final release.
Hmm.
Um, and so 2 days after the beta, or not beta, but the GM build of the final release got put out,
Hmm.
it doesn't fix one of the big issues with iOS 14, where your defaults that you can set are resetting every time you reboot.
Yeah, so hopefully that gets fixed soon because that was one of the features that I'm most excited about, and it's not
Yeah,
hard to change it, but still.
I don't think anybody had mentioned this issue at all before the GM build. And so my guess is it's something that broke in the GM build.
Yeah, so which probably points to a quick fix.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if you do want to download the 14.2 beta, go to betaprofiles.com and you can get the dev profile
Yes.
without paying.
Yep. Just do it. Boom.
So
So I think that concludes everything we have about Apple. Kind of amazing. No iPhone announcement, and it was that long.
yeah, iPhone will. There's some reasons to believe that there could be an event in like September, like 21st to 30th range, because in the event multiple times they like teased like one of two dates in September.
Oh, that'd be
So
interesting then. Yeah, I
yeah,
mean, if they can just delay it enough so that it doesn't seem like, well, Apple likes to try and release things at the event, but I don't think they're going to with the iPhone this time. I don't think it's going to be available for order at the event.
I think it'll be available for order. I don't think it'll ship for a couple weeks.
Yeah, yeah, I guess that's what I mean. Whereas
Yeah.
like the Apple Watch Series 6, like if you ordered it yesterday, like you'll probably have it on like Monday or
No,
Saturday
you
even.
should have it tomorrow. They said. I'm pretty
Oh,
sure.
that's right. No,
Or
I
was
think
it? Was
I
it?
think mine I did some customizations that made it so it was 2 to 4 days instead of 2 days.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But that's like so they had a lot, and like the thing is like I hate it when stuff we were talking about the NVidia launch, being so out of stock. Like if you go to the Apple Watch Series 6 now, I bet you they still have some in stock.
Probably.
Like they're pretty good about that. I mean, the iPhone always sells so quick, but yeah, yeah, it's still like just go buy it and you can get
Yeah.
it. Boom. There's not a big delay. So, kudos to that. I appreciate it when companies do that.
Yeah. Um, and then we can talk about some more messed up pre-orders here soon, because we're going to talk about the PlayStation
Oh.
event. This was an interesting one. I don't think there's ever been such a hype event that left people so confused based on the info that came out just after the event.
Yeah, it's
So this
weird.
event was wild. We're not going to talk about every game. We're not even going to talk about most games because, like, about Call of Duty,
No, we
whatever.
should talk about Call of Duty because you should support Activision since they abuse their employees and take advantage of children and their families' money. So let's talk about them. No.
No. So it opened with the only game not being shown running on a PlayStation 5. They were straight up and said this was running on PC. And I saw a lot of people giving Sony crap for showing a game running on PC. Meanwhile, we've seen almost no public gameplay of the Series X because most of the games are running on PC that we've
Yeah.
seen running on Series X. Digital Foundry even mentioned it in their video about the PlayStation event, where like they've seen some gameplay, but like the public hasn't seen that much.
Mm-hmm. Well,
Whereas,
and just because like the game is being shown on a PC, like that just leads to a level of optimization isn't done yet.
yeah, I do think it's important to show, for especially for launch events like what Sony and Microsoft have been doing.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's important to show games running on the system,
Yeah, no,
because
I agree.
it's one thing, like, if a PS4, like if we see Cyberpunk, 2 years ago running on PC, like obviously it's going to come to PS4 at some point. And so if they showed us PC, but emulating PS4 hardware, like that's fine because that's a ways out and we know what the PlayStation 4 can do.
Mm-hmm.
But people want to see what is the PS5 going to look like? What is the Series X going to look like? And so, like last event, I think the only game shown that wasn't running on PS5 was um, Grand Theft Auto,
Mm-hmm.
because there's not Grand Theft Auto PS5 footage yet because they just announced it. They haven't really gotten into development that much. This game that was announced, wild announcement. Like this is they Final Fantasy 16 was announced. This has been the longest drought in mainline Final Fantasy games, I think, ever in the franchise's history. I don't really play Final Fantasy games that much,
Me neither.
but from
Yeah.
what I've heard, like it's been a long time compared to normal, and so that's a really big deal. And it's made bigger by the fact that it is a PlayStation 5 console exclusive. It is apparently it is coming to PC, although with what we'll talk about in a second with some Demon Soul stuff, maybe not.
So PS5
Um,
exclusive, is that like would that be a assumedly timed exclusive then if it's coming to PC?
no.
Huh.
If it's coming to PC, it would probably come out same day, but it is not coming to Xbox at all for sure.
Huh. Interesting. Huh. Okay.
Which actually is not uncommon. The Final Fantasy franchise used to be PlayStation exclusive.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Completely.
more of a
PlayStation
coming
exclusive.
home than it is like, it'd be one thing for Sony to buy up a Call of Duty or like another like well-known big franchise as exclusive that's its history is from being multi-platform.
Mm-hmm.
This is taking something that was traditionally on PlayStation and it moved off and like taking it back.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I guess that
So
makes sense then. So, But PC then
And
will
then
probably get okay.
maybe. So Demon Souls wasn't the next game announced, but I'll talk about it just because it was relevant.
Mhm.
They did show Demon Souls gameplay, and whew, man, it is a. I mean, obviously it's a huge upgrade from Demon Souls because Demon Souls was a PS3 game, so I would expect a PS5 remaster to be a huge upgrade.
Mhm.
But damn, does it look good! Like I'm not gonna get it because I don't really care about the Souls games, but graphically it's fucking great.
They've always done a pretty good job with graphics too, so
Yeah.
I think.
And um, while some of the first party PlayStation titles are cross generation,
Mhm.
Demon Souls is not.
Oh, okay. So it's very specific then. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
That makes sense that
And
they would put the
then
time into optimizing it and making it look good.
yeah. And then if you compare one of the scenes in their demo that they showed with that exact same thing happening on PlayStation 3,
Mhm.
on PlayStation 3, the load time for that quick travel option was 10 seconds ish. On PlayStation 5, it was 0.86 seconds.
That's gonna be a
That
killer thing, man.
that is where Sony says they're, like vast upgrades, because like on PC generally when you switch to even an NVMe SSD, you don't get 90% of that load time gone. You get 50 to 70% depending on the SSD.
Yeah. Right.
And so that's where like those other optimizations really help, and where RTX IO and things can really help down the line, is helping improve the other bottlenecks along that loading path.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm excited
Um,
that there's at least some level of work being done with that on PC. But
yeah. Um, but yeah, so the reason that I bring this up in context of Final Fantasy is the ending of the trailer for Demon Souls during the event said that it was coming to other like consoles and PC later, but it essentially indicated that like it was like essentially saying it was exclusive to consoles or to PS5 for now, which indicates it's either coming to PS4 later or it's coming to Xbox. But Sony came out and said no, it's just on PS5, not PC, not console, not
huh.
other console. And so if there was that mistake, people are wondering if the Final Fantasy one might have been a mistake, although it's running on PC. I mean, obviously it has to run on PC if they're developing the game.
Well, and
But
aside from that, I
like,
mean the hardware, like it's not like we're dealing with cell processors anymore.
yeah. And Sony has been more open to some of their games being on PC. And so if they're
We've
just
seen
buying
that.
exclusivity,
Yeah, because I mean, like at that point, yeah, you're because PC is not really competition to the consoles in some ways. Like when you start to factor in pricing and value and stuff like that, it's like, you know,
yeah.
they're different. They're kind of different categories in some ways. So, I don't know. We'll see. I'm not a Final
Yeah.
Fantasy person either, though. So, who knows if we'll actually continue to follow that story.
Yeah. And then the next game that was announced, and this was one of the most hype for me, or not announced. They've already announced Spider-Man Miles Morales, but they showed gameplay, and it
Yeah,
looks fucking great. Um, so
like
the
in
scene that they
general or
showed,
graphics specifically.
both.
Okay.
I mean, obviously, there's only so much they can do with, um, graphics in like a big open world game.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and this is a smaller title.
Yeah.
It should be noted that this is not like a full AAA experience.
Right.
It is not going to be like a couple hour experience, but it's probably going to be like its main story mode will
Isn't like
probably be
particularly
like
long.
10-ish hours is the assumption, which it's funny that we say that that's not AAA now, because BioShock Infinite was 8 hours, and I was very happy with my $60 purchase of that game.
Yeah.
But this is where we get into another interesting topic of discussion with the consoles. So you and I have talked on the show about rumors of console games going up in price, and we both have talked about how we think that they should.
Yeah.
This is the first game that we got confirmation was going up in price, even though it's a cheaper game. So the way that this is being priced is the base Spider-Man Miles Morales game, if you just want that, is $50. Whereas if this was not coming to next gen, it would probably be a $40 title. And then the Ultimate Launch Edition of this game includes the previous Spider-Man game, the 2018 version, remastered for PS5, and that is $70, which is now the new top end price for AAA titles on PlayStation 5. Demon Souls is also $70.
Yeah, and so I'm actually really happy about this. Like you said, we've talked a lot on the podcast actually about, um, you know, uh, games needing to be more expensive, right? Like development costs have been going up for, well, they just have been going up, period, ever since gaming's really started, and yet we're in a position where $60 was a norm set 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So
And
it's
like
good to
when you
see.
look at the pricing, realistically, even with the jump to $70, games are cheaper than they were when the price first jumped to 60.
Yeah, no, yeah, they're really high value, and that's where we've talked about it, so I won't get into long detail, but that's where people are like they complain and make the hamburger memes about how you're just getting the bun when you buy the game and the DLC's all the parts inside. But it's like, okay, yeah, but like if you want to go get a Five Guys burger and you're like, here's $1, that's what you're gonna get. You're not getting the full product. You have to buy the
Yeah.
full product, and so like I think it's important to have an understanding there is as game prices go up, I do think that more should be included and DLC should go down, so to speak. Like shouldn't like just more free DLC basically.
Yeah, I mean,
Because
there's a
development
number of
time is
different things that the $70 price increase brings along with it. So obviously, there's the just overall they make a lot of money thing.
yeah,
Um, but then there's also the when games are so relative for the entertainment medium, like cheap, you don't pay $60 for 40 hours worth of movie theater time. You pay $60 for 10 hours worth of movie theater time.
yeah. Well,
Um,
unless you buy a lot of food, then you pay like $45 for 2 hours.
yeah. But like, so when they're so cheap relative to the medium, you run into the issue that because games are so damn expensive to make, a lot of Sony titles are $100 million plus dollars. Same thing with like Red Dead Redemption 2 is up there, $100 million games. Grand Theft Auto, those types of things.
hmm
Those are all pretty high risk games, and so they have to play it safe. If you and people have been complaining for a while now that too many games feel cookie cutter, they feel safe. They don't ever take risks anymore. If you want games to take risks, they have to have a greater expectation of recouping that money. And so if you expect the games to be as cheap as possible and as risky as possible, one of those two things can't happen. And
Yeah,
so a little bit of a price increase to give a little bit of flexibility for game developers is a good thing. Now, obviously, this could be abused. You're going to see games like NBA 2K still milk you up the wazoo for microtransactions and still charge you $70.
yeah.
And that's a problem. But ultimately, like, we're running into a situation where the games that are going to do bad are going to do bad either way. And if you have a problem with that, you should just not buy those games in the first place.
Yeah.
And then for the games that aren't going to do bad, I think there needs to be a lot more granularity in their pricing. I
Yes.
don't think that every big release is going to be worthy of that $70 price tag.
I
Um,
100% agree with you there. Yeah, there needs to be a granularity to it.
yeah, and so I think that that's something else is like, when we look at the Sony games that were announced, pricing wise, one of the launch titles is Sackboy's Big Adventure. It's a new big platforming game. I assumed that was going to be price wise along with the rest of their top end titles. So now that we know that it's $70, I would have assumed $70, but it's 60.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be a bigger title than Spider-Man Miles Morales. So it's $10 more than Spider-Man Miles Morales is, but it's not in Sony's eyes worthy of that $70 price tag, and I think that that's important. Um, Ultimately,
100% agree.
games should take a look at their costs and take a look at their future planned support and then make their pricing decision based upon that, not just go, oh, we're releasing a game, we're going to charge the max amount.
Yeah, I think that's a really important thing to take away from this. I think it's very important to, not every game is the same value. Like Witcher 3 is certainly not the same value as, NBA 2K, or even some of the smaller $60 games that have been released that are shorter, right? Like Witcher 3 is the type of game where, assuming you didn't pay for any DLC separately, is like $100 wouldn't be a bad price for it, right? Because of how much content there is there.
Yeah.
And I feel like that granularity, like I want to see games between $20 and $100 depending on the expense of that game.
For me, I do personally think that when you're talking overall, like I know a lot of people don't like the season pass model, and there are some very valid reasons to not like it when it comes to companies lying or flopping on things. But I do like the model of buying the DLC later rather than pricing it in early. And so I guess less so the season pass model and more just buying your DLC.
Yeah.
I am fine with that. For one, constant revenue flow is good for the company as far as maintaining jobs. And then two, if the first DLC is bad that comes out, then you can not buy the next one if it's not good. Whereas if you pay $100 up front and get all the DLC for free, that's essentially the same thing as pricing in the season pass into the cost of the game.
Yeah,
And
no,
then
I agree.
if the content is bad, then you have paid money for bad content.
Yes.
So I'm fine with the DLC model. I just think that overall games should go up in price because, like, one example, Assassin's Creed. When Ubisoft is not doing a price jump for their first wave of games, like any of the games that are going to be on current gen as well as next gen, they are not price increasing.
Mm-hmm.
I already think they should get rid of it, but when they price increase games, if they're still doing that bullshit of balancing the game around a paid extra XP option, like Assassin's Creed, they
Yeah.
did that.
Oh
That is
man.
some bullshit already. And if
Yeah.
they're still doing that with the price increase, that's some serious bullshit. You definitely should not buy those games. But this is the time for them to get rid of it if they're still doing it. I mean, they should just get rid of it anyway again. But the price is increasing. Reassess how you price your games.
Yeah, I think that's I entirely agree there. I agree that the DLC model is fine. But I also agree, like I was kind of going along with that point of games, you should get the whole game when you pay for it, even if it's more expensive, that's okay. And like Cyberpunk, if it's $70 or $80, like I
It's
think
going to
it's
be
fine.
60.
It's probably gonna be 60. But you get
They
my
already
point.
said.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
they
that's
said
right.
that
That's
they are
right. They
not
did.
price
Yeah.
increasing. Yeah.
Yeah, but like I would have been okay with it.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's the point there. And especially with games where we've seen like some of the stuff that EA has done, with Battlefront, where it was like 4,000 hours or $4,000 to unlock everything on average. Like that's where it's kind of like you feel like you're not really getting the whole game.
Yeah. And it's like this is another thing too about the pricing. And obviously this isn't really something that consumers should have to pay attention to. This is just something publishers should take into account when they're assessing the pricing of their games.
Mm-hmm.
Is like Ubisoft owns pretty much every single one of their studios. EA owns a large portion of their studios. So when they publish a game, obviously they have to pay out money to shareholders and all that bullshit. But like they should ultimately, I feel like they should be pricing it less because they're not paying a third party entity for publishing. Then like if like CD Projekt Red is obviously releasing their game on GOG, but I'm pretty sure they're working with a separate publisher to do the actual distribution of like the physical copies of games.
Yeah.
Because they're not publisher level big yet. And so with that, like if they charged extra in the areas where they or in the situations where they had to work with the publisher, that's also a reasonable thing. Whereas like when they're releasing it on GOG, they don't pay any of the 30% split. so they're getting the full $60. Whereas when you buy it through a publisher or through PlayStation Store or whatever, they're losing a decent chunk of that sale.
Yeah, no, that's a good point as well. And I think that emphasizes more that we definitely need some level of granularity. We need a range where games can fit in. AAA games can fit in a $50 to $80 range or something like that.
Yeah.
And you adjust it in $5 increments depending on what makes the most sense for your costs.
Yeah. And then going back to Spider-Man real quick, one last thing or a couple things I want to add. So that Ultimate Launch Edition, which includes Spider-Man Remastered for PS5, what a killer deal. If you have not played the Spider-Man game before and you're just like picking up a PlayStation 5 and you haven't had a PS4 before, $20 extra for Spider-Man, and not just for Spider-Man. If it was just for Spider-Man for PS4, like that's pretty much what you pay for it now. But to get it remastered with ray tracing, improved character models, improved animations, denser worlds,
it's a big
all of
remaster.
That is a killer deal, and that includes all of the DLC. Albeit the DLC for the Spider-Man game was kind of trash in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
But the core game is amazing. $20 additional to get the remaster is well worth it. That is the version I'm buying, even though I've already played Spider-Man.
Yeah.
I'll just sell my copy because I buy the physical discs. So I'll just sell my Spider-Man for PS4.
Yeah.
Then the next game that was announced, and this is probably the last game I'll talk about, Harry Potter. They finally announced the Harry Potter RPG.
Wait, did they finally make a game about you? Is that what you're saying?
No. So this is actually not about Harry Potter, the character. It's about Hogwarts, and it's an RPG where you make your character.
Okay, I'm kind of now I'm interested. Now I'm gonna look this up while you're talking about it.
Yeah, it looks good. I'm excited, but there's a big issue about this game, and unfortunate for the developers, the franchise, and the fans, because J.K. Rowling is rightfully getting a lot of hate, and a lot of people are really unsure about buying this game because they don't want to support her, but they also really want to support the developers who have been working on this for years, and they also really want to support what looks like a great game so far. But J.K. Rowling is using her platform and her money to hate on trans people because she doesn't understand anything. And it's like, yo, you got the money, educate yourself.
Yeah, it's
and so that's been a big issue. So she has no direct involvement. Obviously, she's going to make some money because it's her franchise. There's no way that they're making a Harry Potter game without her profiting.
Yeah.
But like she had no say in the story. Hilarious tweet where somebody said it was obvious that she had no involvement in the game because when you're building your character, you pick your gender. Yeah. But I just don't get her. Like, she just needs to chill. And like, thankfully, too, the actors that were in the movies have all been like great people. You know, Daniel Radcliffe has been a big advocate for trans rights, as an example. And so it's like the fan base and the actors both said like, we're not going to let you ruin the books and the movies for us. But the issue is like, she might still have ruined future content for a lot of people.
That's a good point. Yeah.
You know, especially if you or a really close one are transgender and you're dealing with, you know, seeing her say that, like, it might be really hard to go play a game, even if you're like willing to deal with the whole, she might get some money out of it. Like, for some of those people, it's going to be hard to play that game in that context.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point to bring up, and it's unfortunate that that's happening because, like, I'm looking at the trailer right now, and it looks fantastic. It looks really, really interesting. Now, to transition away from the sadness, is it PlayStation exclusive?
No.
Oh.
Series X, PC, and PS5.
Interesting. Okay, all right.
So
I don't know. I gotta say though, with some of the titles coming out and stuff, I don't know if I could realistically spend more time on gaming, I might buy a PS5. I don't know. I have it on pre-order.
Yeah, you do.
So I mean, not
on
for
Amazon.
I did pre-order it, not for myself. You know, I pre-ordered it in case somebody wants it, but I don't know. Maybe I just won't cancel it.
Or in case Calvin's gets canceled again, since he had
Oh my
GameStop
gosh.
pre-orders get canceled before.
Yeah. What I don't get is like I don't know, like for me, I want it, but then I'll get it and I'll just not use it enough to justify it. So far the Switch has been the only console that I've really done that with. So
Hmm.
I don't know. But I mean, I do use the Switch on my TV, so it could be worth it. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, the thing for you is that you generally don't try that many games.
Yes.
And I think if you decide to start doing that, then that would be one thing. And it's not like I can't let you borrow a decent amount of games, so you don't have to pay for them until you're sure you're gonna want to play them.
Hmm.
Um, but like if you're willing to do that, I think you would really like a lot of the Sony exclusives, for example. You would
Probably.
love God of War.
Yeah.
You
It's
would
also a
love that
matter
game.
of I have loved God of War. It's a matter of carving out time that, it's like time can be used for something else too, I don't know. But
Yeah, I mean, yeah. It's just a matter of like, do you replay another game again or
mhm,
play a long-standing game, or do you
yeah.
take
I
a
do have
break?
a
Like that.
lot of
That's
games to play already though too to get
yeah. Like that's
through.
how I
So,
do it. Is I have a few long-standing games that I play, but then when a big game comes out, like when Cyberpunk comes out, I'm gonna take a break from RuneScape. Um, the issue for me with Cyberpunk is it comes out the week after the PS5, so I'm gonna have to power through Miles Morales and then play Cyberpunk.
you should get Cyberpunk for PC and we can chat while we play it.
I was already gonna get it for PC.
Okay, good man.
I actually would probably get it for PlayStation 5 if the PS5 upgrade was out, but they at launch day it's just going to be the PS4 version.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
Whereas if cuz like I'll already have ray tracing on PC. If I could have ray tracing and SSD optimization, I'd probably do it there.
Yeah.
Um but
Yeah.
yeah, I'll just get it on PC. Plus I can give CD Projekt Red more money if I buy it on PC. So
Yeah, yeah, buying it from GOG too, supporting DRM free. I think that's important.
yeah.
So,
For those that don't know, CDPR runs GOG.
yeah, yeah, I think that's important. I think that was
So
something that took me a long time to realize, and I was like, oh, that makes sense. That makes
yeah.
sense. And I really like, I get everything I can through GOG. It's the first place I search, and having a universal launcher is really nice too. So,
Hmm.
I just wish that there was a way they could universally tap into chat because you have your friends list to see who's online and who's playing what, but you can't chat with them unless you open up the app for that.
Yeah.
I wish there was
And
an
then
API.
and then if you do decide to buy a PlayStation 5, you'll obviously get PlayStation Plus. Well, they have something in PlayStation Plus that is a nice improvement. So at no extra cost, you get the PlayStation Plus collection, which is, I guess, it's not really something you should compare to Game Pass because they haven't really talked about it so far in the context of like a rotating library with brand new games or anything. What they're launching it as is essentially a way for people that didn't play PS4 who are switching over to PS5, or people who just didn't play a lot of these specific games, I guess, um, a way to play some of the biggest PS4 games, not the newest ones, but some of the biggest previous ones, at no extra cost. So
That's
it's
really
priced
nice.
in with PlayStation Plus. And something somebody I saw online pointed out that is also a really good point about this is the um the other thing that this PlayStation Plus collection does is it helps ease the transition for people that have a few physical games and are switching over to um, PS5 Digital Edition and still might want to play some
That's a good
PS4
point.
games.
Yeah. And like for me, like
Because
I'm usually a digital person. You know me.
yeah,
Now in this situation, because A, it's the one I pre-ordered, but B, because I know people, I would probably stick with the disc version so I can borrow games and stuff. But um,
yeah. Well,
yeah,
and then the other thing is like there's still situations for console games versus not so much for PC, where obviously pretty much everything is digital.
yeah,
Um, but like for PlayStation and Xbox games, there are still a lot of times where you can get games for a decent amount cheaper if you buy them physically. One example being if you pre-order a number of games, including I'm pretty sure it's Call of Duty Cold War is one of them. If you pre-order it at Best Buy, you get a $10 reward certificate. And so if you're
Mm,
essentially getting $10 off of, a couple big titles a year over the course of the system, that alone, not counting sharing games, not counting reselling, will
pays for
pay
that
for that
difference.
difference.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point too. So as long as you're just a moderate gamer, not a heavy gamer,
Yeah.
even you can make that money back.
And then
And then
real
it's kind of
quick,
cool to have a physical item too. It takes up space, but it looks cool, too. So
yeah.
yeah.
Real quick, I'll run through the games that are on the PlayStation Plus collection.
Hmm.
So you have Batman Arkham Knight, Battlefield 1, Bloodborne, Days Gone, Detroit Become Human, Fallout 4, Final Fantasy 15, God of War 2018, Infamous Second Son, Last Guardian, Last of Us Remastered, Monster Hunter World, Mortal Kombat X, Persona 5, Ratchet and Clank, Resident Evil 7 Biohazard, Uncharted 4 A Thief's End, and Until Dawn.
That's a lot. That's a pretty good library.
Yeah, that is a quality library, is I think one
Yeah.
of the important things to note there. So like
There's a lot of crap included with Microsoft.
Game Pass, like I love it. I'm glad I'm subscribed to it.
Yeah.
But there's definitely a lot of months where there's games that like a lot of games that come out that I just don't give a shit about.
Yeah.
Which is fine. Like for me, the reason that it's a good value is the first party titles, and I get to try out indie games that I otherwise wouldn't have tried because I wouldn't have put money on games that I'm unsure about.
And then those devs get money. Like,
Yeah.
so you're supporting them too, yeah.
And then in a lot of cases, indie devs especially have noted that even while the game is still on the subscription service, they see such an increase in sales, it's well worth it.
Yeah.
And so
yeah,
that
it
type of thing,
popularizes it, and I think it's also I think it'll help cut down on things like piracy and stuff too, if people can, when people can try out games.
yeah.
So
And so like Game Pass is fantastic, and I think it will also get much better in the quality department once Microsoft has taken advantage of their new studio acquisitions in a few years.
mhm.
But for right now, like, God of War, Uncharted 4, Last of Us Remastered, if you haven't played those games, this is killer.
And I am one that hasn't.
Yeah.
So who knows? Who knows? I don't know. I it's hard for me to pick games
Yeah.
because like I want to play Elite Dangerous so much more, man, but it's like
And then
I don't have it on my TV.
yeah. And then speaking of God of War, the last thing they announced at the event, or the last thing they teased, was God of War Ragnarok is coming.
I've liked the two God of War games that I have played.
Mhm.
It's been impressive. One of them was we're back when the PSP Go was around. I don't remember which version that was, but it was a great game. I loved it.
Yeah.
So
And God of War 2018 is a huge step up. I don't know if you know this about the game. There's no camera cuts.
oh wow, that's nice.
At all. Going from gameplay to cutscene, the only time that the camera ever cuts from the start of the game to the end of the game is when you die.
I like that. I like that fluidity, and it makes it better with the SSD benefits there.
Oh
yeah.
oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
But it's like it is just such a quality game. It's so like throwing the axe is so satisfying. Everything is so well done. The story is fantastic.
Mhm.
They didn't do any DLC for that game. They said this is the story we wanted to tell. We'll continue the story in the next game.
That's nice.
Yeah.
I like it. Cool. And then I guess kind of our last subject about it here, or last topic of the show, kind of even.
Well, I haven't mentioned prices yet.
Oh, that's right. Yes, let's get through that.
So, $4.99 for the disk drive version and $3.99 for the diskless version. Exactly what I predicted.
Yeah, and it was $100 less than I thought it would be. I thought there was going to be $600 for the disc version. That was just my thoughts.
Yeah,
but I thought they were going to try and kind of push the diskless, and when you push, if the pricing like the pricing structure now, they're going to sell more of the disk drive version than if they had bumped both up $100. It would be all diskless because of that price differential there.
I think if they would have gone all diskless, they would have just lost sales.
Maybe so too. Yeah.
Or if the diskless would have been $500, I should say.
Yeah, because 400 is a much more affordable range, even for like a Christmas gift for somebody potentially, or something, family stuff.
And what having it at $400 does is it changes the game for the Series S.
Mm-hmm.
So the Series S, obviously at $299, like it is a good value if you need a cheap system to play games on if you don't have anything to play right now.
Yeah.
But when you're comparing, if you don't care about the exclusives, let's say you're primarily looking at like Call of Duty, Fortnite, 2K, whatever, a fairly typical gamer, FIFA, Madden. If you're looking at playing mostly those games, you have the option of, for $300, the Series S, which is like a 1440p box, according to Microsoft, with a 512 gig hard drive. So probably like 380 usable. That's 2 or 3 games.
Yeah.
3 games if you play Call of Duty, Fortnite, and FIFA, or Call of Duty 2K and Madden. For $400, you get a machine more targeted at 4K that will also do 3D audio without the need for Dolby Atmos speakers,
Mm-hmm.
and that has an 825 gig hard drive, so probably based on Sony's history of generally using up less of the drive than Microsoft, because I have looked into this, they do generally use 5 to 10% less than Microsoft. Like Microsoft will take up to 22 to 25% of your drive,
Yeah.
traditionally. Sony has taken 20 to 14% depending on the system, for the current gen. So you're looking at like let's say low 700 gigabytes. That's a very substantial difference in what you can have installed. You go from Call of Duty, Fortnite, and 2K to Call of Duty, Fortnite, Harry Potter, Spider-Man, and Grand Theft Auto.
Yeah. Yeah.
A
No, and
much
I think
wider
that's a
library.
yeah, because there's a lot of people that don't just play one game at a time. In fact, I'm one of those people where I kind of will be playing, 4 or 5 simultaneously, like not simultaneously, but you know what I mean. And having to
Mhm.
reinstall stuff like that would be really irritating if you can only have 2 games or something like that. That
Yeah,
just sucks.
yeah,
So
and so it's like yeah. Ultimately, if you do need more storage than the 825, at launch, pricing for external storage will probably be pretty similar, except for the fact that it sounds like you'll only be able to get a 1 terabyte expansion for the Xbox, whereas obviously because Sony is using M.2
yeah,
NVMe SSDs, if a 512 gig that is fast enough is released, you can use it, and so you could potentially save money that way.
or
But
if you
like
need like
looking
a
at
ton of space long term too.
Yeah, but looking at like price per terabyte, at launch they'll probably be the same. But that's pretty bad on Microsoft's part since Sony's drives are more than twice as fast.
Yeah,
Um, but I think vastly less people will need storage expansion from 825 gigs, even if Microsoft did an 825 on the Xbox Series X, which they thankfully did 1 terabyte.
mm-hmm.
Um, but like just less people will need that. It's easier to balance enough room for, let's say, 5 to 6 larger games than it is 2 to 3 larger games.
Absolutely. That's a huge deal, especially if you want to keep maybe a game that you only play with friends periodically installed. You don't have to reinstall it when your friends are like, "Hey, let's play tonight."
Yeah,
And with slow internet and bandwidth caps in the US, that actually amplifies the importance of having enough space to not have to reinstall stuff constantly. Like having
yeah,
to
and like,
reinstall Call of Duty like once a week because you want
yeah,
to play other stuff. Like, are you kidding me?
I do have a feeling what we're going to see sold is external SSDs, specifically branded as like, and these will be like QLC, not super fast, just cheap high capacity SSDs, sold as essentially like game archive drives, because you can move the games over to external drives. You just can't play them off of any external drive on both
Right.
systems.
Okay.
So on the Xbox, if you have an external hard drive for your current Xbox, you could use that on your Xbox One, both for backwards compatibility and for like moving games that you're not currently playing off onto the drive. So you don't have to re-download them from the internet. But if you don't buy an SSD, that's still, for a 200 gig game, transferring off of probably a 5400 RPM slow ass hard drive. that's in your cheap external drive, like that's going to take a while still.
Yeah, it's still annoying, like if somebody wants to play it at night. So it doesn't really mitigate the speed thing necessarily.
Correct, yeah.
Yeah, and in fact, I mean, there are, gigabit internet is not incredibly hard to come by in a lot of places anymore. And so then you're looking at, um, performance that's not that far off from just downloading it, assuming the servers can deliver it fast enough.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this though: why can't I use TrueNAS with an iSCSI link to a 10 gigabit adapter for more storage for a console?
I don't know. However, you'll find this hilarious if I haven't already told you this. But so PS5 or PS4, I should say, historically bad networking. Like it takes forever to download games,
I've heard
despite
so
people
bad.
having good
Yeah.
internet connections.
I experienced that, and I never actually played a game on it. I just owned one.
That's a software issue. You know how we know that?
Oh, that's right.
There is a method of using your PC over Ethernet and downloading the games faster by using your PC as a buffer for some reason.
It's so weird.
Yeah.
It's something to do with the way they built things there. It's either a software issue or
It's a specific thing with how they have it configured on PlayStation, because when you're doing this and you're running the software, it's essentially something with changing, I think it's the size of packets it's allowed to download.
Oh, no, that makes sense. It's changing
And
the MTU. Yeah.
Yeah, that's limited on the PlayStation end, not on the server
So it's
end.
PlayStation's networking hardware potentially that can't handle a high enough MTU.
Yeah.
That might be what it is, because if the MTU is too small, that's the maximum transmission unit, then you're sending more packets. You have more packet loss, which you can't have with games, so it has to resend those packets, and that's going to significantly slow things down.
Yeah. And it should be noted, it sounds like Sony is trying to deal with this on PlayStation 5, because while the Series S and X only have Wi-Fi AC, Sony's actually gone up to Wi-Fi 6. I mean, maybe they'll fuck it up again, but it'd be pretty odd for them to jump to Wi-Fi 6 and still have like such shitty networking hardware. They have like a bad MTU.
Yeah, no, it'd be a weird way for them to go. Networking hardware is so cheap now. Like, I'm almost surprised it doesn't have a 10 gig NIC, because you can get those for, like, as a consumer with a PCI card, like $50.
Yeah.
But I'm excited for that actually if I end up getting it, because I already have Wi-Fi 6. I can't say what Wi-Fi 6 I have, but I already have Wi-Fi 6, and it's been a good experience on devices that support it, which I think the iPhone 11 Pro has, but I know that my iPad does. So yeah.
Yeah, I get why it doesn't, but I kind of wish it had Wi-Fi 6E.
Yeah, it'd be nice,
just
but
too early.
It's too early for it. Yeah, and I mean, again, Wi-Fi 6E is not it's a weird situation, because 6E is really beneficial for somebody living in a very populated area like apartments or townhouses, but then
which
it's
is a significant portion of the population.
Yeah, it's a lot of people, right? That's why I'm saying it's it's the situation where, like, if you're in a house though, like, there's no point in spending the extra money, because you'll get basically no benefit. Yeah.
But like, I do wish it had it for like, especially like downtown, like city center apartment buildings.
Yeah.
Getting
it'd be
anything
really useful.
off of 2.4 and off of 5 that we can would be nice.
Yeah,
it'd be better
definitely.
for everyone.
Absolutely.
So. But let's talk about buying these. Oh man. So the event did not announce any pre-order details. Now, a lot of people thought that was odd, and I do agree that they should have just found a way to do it. But the reason that they didn't probably comes down to the code name for this event. So it was codenamed Project Nimble, because they wanted to be able to release it at any time. So they essentially had pre-made this. So they didn't want to say pre-orders tomorrow if they didn't know they were going to release it the day before they were going to drop pre-orders. They didn't want to say pre-orders, September 17th, it releases November 12th, if they hadn't confirmed shipment was going to happen by then. And so they didn't want to pre-record something with the wrong dates. So they essentially had just pre-made this. It didn't even actually say at this event that Spider-Man Miles Morales or Demon Souls were launch titles. They just said coming holiday. It wasn't until after the event, Jeff Keighley, who runs the Game Awards, was on Twitter tweeting that that Spider-Man and that Demon Souls are launch games, and that PlayStation 5 pre-order should be going up tomorrow, And then Sony eventually confirmed, yes, they should be going up tomorrow. And keep in mind, this was yesterday. And then
we when we were putting together the doc, we had a fun conversation and situation.
yeah, so on my way home from work yesterday, pre-orders go live at Walmart. Pre-orders go live at Target. Pre-orders go live at Best Buy. I was trying to pre-order it through Best Buy. Best Buy, the tech company, like the company that sells tech, had the worst website. Their entire cart system was broken for not even 6 hours, because it was broken from 5 until I went to bed at 11. I woke up at 1 o'clock in the morning. I tried it again. Their cart system was still broken.
Like, not just for the PlayStation, right?
No, for everything.
Yeah, like, to be clear, like, it actually just broke their site.
I removed the PlayStation from my cart and tried to go to checkout just to see if it was working, and it didn't work multiple times.
Oh, man.
And then some people did manage to get their systems. Like, it was occasionally loading to the next page. You just had to get lucky. I slowly made my way from I couldn't load the cart all the way to confirming which store I wanted to pick it up at. But I could never get to the fucking checkout page.
That's just so frustrating.
Yeah.
It's so frustrating. Oh,
I did end up
man.
thankfully getting it pre-ordered through Amazon.
And
Not
so
my
did
ideal
I.
choice.
Yeah.
Funny enough too, and this is another example of how, like, Amazon, for example, fucked it up. Rather than what you would think would happen of the Amazon store listing for the PS5 going live and you going there and clicking add to cart, instead, somehow somebody found a link for the PlayStation 5 discless and digital version. It was an add to cart for both products link. And that started circulating on Twitter. And so the secret was to add both of them to your cart and then remove the one you didn't want.
Dude, it's so weird. I don't...
Yeah.
It was a really weird way of doing it. And, like, I actually pre-ordered one. He convinced me to pre-order one specifically in the event that what if somebody we know wants one and didn't get a pre-order. Funny now that I might end up just keeping it. But yeah, it was really hard to get a hold of. I was actually surprised that I was still able to get one, because remember, I was trying to add the discless one, and then it went out of stock right when I clicked the button.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's interesting.
And then Walmart re-released pre-orders today, and they already sold out in less than a minute.
Yep. Selling out of pre-orders
So-
that fast. And then, of course, it's like everything's doing that. Like, I'm trying to get a 3090 here. Come on.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Oh, boy.
But yeah, that was the big PlayStation event.
Yeah.
Overall, really good. A lot of chaos at the end and after. But I'm excited for Spider-Man Miles Morales. That's
Pretty
the main
cool.
hype.
Yeah. And I guess at this point, comparing the hardware, it seems like it's kind of a no-brainer unless you want to pay for monthly to get the PlayStation. Because, well, okay, I guess what I'll say is, like, me being a PC gamer, right? I have zero interest in the Xbox. I might end up getting a PlayStation. And so,
Yeah, as a PC gamer, I think that's definitely the case, because every first-party Microsoft game will be coming to PC.
yeah. Well,
So
and
you
this is
don't
also
need it
like
to
the
play
Switch,
exclusives.
where it's like it's unique enough in some of the things it can do that it's worth potentially getting it with the faster SSD, the better first-party games.
If you don't have a PC and you don't care about Sony's, or you don't care about either company's first-party titles, but what you do care about is it, again, where Xbox was the better multimedia device. If you care about it for movie, like 4K Blu-ray playback with the 1X, or just Dolby Vision video playback, or I guess more so Dolby Atmos theater experiences, because PS5 could do Dolby Atmos, or Dolby Vision, it can't do Dolby Atmos.
Yeah.
Like, Sony can't add that in if they have their own 3D audio solution.
Well, it would add a lot of cost to do that too. Because
I
there's
don't think
certain
that
hardware
I don't
things
think
and
that
stuff.
Adobe allows them to
They might not. I'm
run their own audio solution, because Dolby Atmos is also specifically being launched for games.
Yeah, and it's also, I mean,
It's
Dolby Atmos, they advertise the crap out of it on whatever product it is. They wouldn't want, like, powered by Dolby Atmos, and then it's not their stuff.
yeah.
Yeah.
And especially when they're trying to do it for games. So, like, that's the thing is, like, Xbox's 3D audio solution for games is literally Dolby Atmos.
Yeah.
Whereas Sony doesn't want to use Dolby Atmos because, for one, Dolby Atmos doesn't use HRTFs, and two, it only works on Dolby Atmos hardware. And Sony is trying to open up 3D audio in as high of quality as they can to as many people as they can. And that obviously you have to balance a lot of things. And if that means building your own solution, that's probably what you have to do.
Yeah. I guess the last thing I'll say before we get off is I'm curious how the UI is going to be, because I have never been a fan of the PS3 or PS4's UI. It's been ugly. I don't like the whatever they call it, XMB or whatever.
Yeah, my guess is it will be a cleaned up version of that. I don't think it's going to be vastly different. Because if it's
Yeah.
vastly different, like, what is it going to look like, the Xbox?
I don't know. I like the
Like,
Xbox
at this point,
design.
like, if they change it, yeah, but they don't want it to be too similar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'll see.
I've seen some mock-ups that were like modifications on the Sony UI that were so much better despite overall being pretty similar.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that there is ways that they could make it look a lot better.
Okay. Well,
and work a lot better. And I do think that having an SSD will help it not feel as slow.
yeah. And by the way, they do have a pretty nice looking media remote for it already, which makes
Oh, I
me
know.
wonder
I'm
if
already gonna
there's.
buy it.
Yeah, it's available right now.
I know.
I'm
It's in
probably
my cart
gonna,
up
if
now.
I decide to keep this pre-order, I'm gonna add that, because
Yeah.
it could, if they do the right things, could be a really good multimedia device. And having those 4 buttons on there that are blank, that means that you can program it to open specific apps, which is a complaint I have always had about most multimedia stuff. Is Netflix pays money for Roku to put the Netflix
I don't
button.
think the remote is actually blank. I think that was because if you look at it on Sony's website,
Oh no,
um,
that's Amazon's mistake. If you look at the box, it does show them.
yeah, it's Disney
Okay.
Plus, Netflix, YouTube, and I don't know what the other one is.
Looks like it says Spotify.
Oh, that makes sense
Yeah,
because
yeah,
PlayStation has Spotify integration,
yeah.
as I had
So,
mentioned
I mean,
once.
if this could be a machine that can also handle all my media, and if the Blu-ray player in it, it does have one, right?
Yes,
Is good
it
enough?
does do 4K Blu-rays.
Dolby Vision.
I don't think they've confirmed yet.
Okay, because if it's a good enough 4K Blu-ray player, that'd be also nice. Because
Yeah,
then if it can do all my media streaming, so I can make this my, because that's my thing, is like I love WebOS, but it's like a pain in the butt to use different services, because like WebOS doesn't have enough services, but it's way better than all the other TV operating systems.
just
So
use the Apple TV app.
what do you mean?
You didn't you get the update yet for Apple
Oh
TV on your
yeah,
phone?
no, I know, but I'm saying there's other services that aren't on WebOS. There's a lot of stuff that's missing.
Yeah, more stuff is probably on Apple TV than is on WebOS. The Apple TV app is essentially their Apple TV
Is it like
UI.
Amazon where you can have? Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah, it's essentially like buying and throwing an Apple TV in your TV, from my understanding.
I'm gonna go give that a shot after we're done with this then.
Yeah,
Cool.
like you should be able to access anything that's on Apple TV.
Oh, well, that's good to know then. Okay. Well, I think that pretty much sums it up. We've gone for a really long time here, so we're not going to put our other topics in this one. I'll probably move those over to the next one because they're not really time sensitive. So that's pretty much it for the WordCast number 82. I know that was a lot of talk about Apple and PlayStation, and a lot of the stuff we do here is servers and PC, but
That's the news for the week.
I think this is just well, it's interesting, it's intriguing, and it's there's a place in the market for it.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's definitely, I think, a better place in the market, a better position than Xbox.
And PC, or Xbox and PlayStation this generation are forcing PC to move forward.
They are, yeah, which is cool on some things. Let's be clear.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Let me finish. I was gonna say the SSD is the first like big spec change we've seen in a long time that will likely affect the minimum requirements for PC games.
Yeah, that's true, which has been like stagnant for a while. So And then regarding the Apple news, because we do cover them quite a bit, like I just want to say that sometimes things just functioning so I can work on a server or something like that is really nice, when I'm not having to deal with some kind of bug or crap on my phone, so that I can, finish installing Nextcloud on a server. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a place in the market for that too.
I also feel like, we also have just covered them a lot recently because they've announced a lot. I mean, they had
Yeah.
WWDC, they had this, they've had some big events
Yeah.
multiple times, and there's a lot of rumors before them.
And I don't
After the
think like go ahead.
after the iPhone event, like we'll probably cover them a couple times in the next few weeks because of the iPhone event upcoming and the
Yeah.
rumors around that. But after that, it's like they're probably not going to have anything until the iPad Pro and the new Macs.
Yeah, and I think just it's fun to cover something interesting, and it'll be really excited to see the new Macs to see how that goes
Yes.
for
Yeah.
ARM. So, it's just people like to have the flame wars, but I think there's a position in the market for most products.
Yeah. Ultimately, if you like computing and you like PC gaming, the consoles and Apple switching to ARM, and in fact, Apple and their tablet focus as well, realistically are changing PC gaming in the console case and computing in general for
It affects you,
normal
yeah,
users. Yeah.
yeah,
It affects the whole industry.
yeah.
And NVIDIA buying ARM also definitely affects the whole industry.
I'm so excited to see what comes of that, man.
Yeah.
It is awesome. Well, I think that's all we have this time, guys. So, thank you everybody for joining for WordCast number 82.
Yeah, hopefully next week the air won't be toxic and it won't feel so dry. And
Oh man, Portland's so bad right now.
Yeah, my throat's so dry and I've drank so much water.
Me too. It's gross. It's really gross. Like the AQI is still really bad here.
Yep.
Well, thank you everybody.